Esports Racing League. For the first time in a couple of years, it's time to answer the age-old question: who is the best? Ready to go for round 2 in the 2026 Esports Racing League. And after starting on Live for Speed, we've wound forward the clock to something a bit more modern. But breaking out the PlayStations, once again, the Esports Racing League returns to Gran Turismo 7. Hi folks, my name is Arjuna Kankipati. Delighted to have your company, delighted to be joined by Lewis McLeod, who joins us after missing our last Gran Turismo round. And Lewis, we had an open wheel machine last time we went racing on Gran Turismo. It's going to be a tin top this time around. We're expecting a bit more argy-bargy and chaos as we work through a slightly different format through the night.
Yeah, taking the S15s out today, which is a bit more up my street, to be honest. Absolutely love the S15. Always had since I was a kid. Obviously appearing in a lot of games when we were growing up, I'm sure. Look, it's going to be a great car track combo. We'll talk about the track a little bit later on, and a great chance for me to catch up with what our drivers are going to be getting on with in GT7.
Question is, Dara McCormack in bed with his controller sat like this? Only time will tell. Let's dive into the format though that we'll see tonight, because like I mentioned, slightly different, where we'll see 3 heat races, but not all teams represented in all heat races, but combine the points out of those races, 3 teams directly to the semi-finals. We'll skip the quarter-final stage this time around. Everyone else to the mad scramble, Lewis, of a second chance race.
Yeah, going to be brutal in there. Just obviously 1 driver per team in the second chance race. The top 3 teams will progress out of the second chance race, making up our 2 semi-finals. Of course, the top 2 from each of those progress through into the final, which you pointed out before we went live, Arjuna. That means that we'll have 4 teams in the final, the biggest final we've ever had in ERL.
Which means expecting lots of argy-bargy in just 1 race. That's what makes it even more crucial to avoid the penalty points as well. We're winding our way through the platforms though in this 2026 ERL. Next time out we'll visit iRacing. RaceRoom will host the final round of our regular season before our final 4 teams will compete in person on the Last Garage, which of course, Lewis, we got to see in person, as well as the car that these teams will be competing in, the Vickers 8, back in January.
And, you know, for what we're seeing, it looks like a good fun car to drive. We had a little go on the Last Garage, which, you know, was mixed in terms of our potential, that's for sure. I think Ewan O'Leary was showing himself as quite well on that platform, if I do remember correctly. But, look, the car looked great. Can't wait to see it race around, you know, maybe a different circuit as well. I'm sure the drivers will stand up to the challenge.
Lots of unknowns and uncertainties, but we whittle down these teams to the final 4. Of course, our defending champions, EMM Esports, looking to try and continue a good run of form that's seen them rise to that championship top. On the other hand, there's some teams that will be looking at this round, Lewis, with particular interest, and they may have picked some Gran Turismo specialists. And we got some World Series drivers on the cars for today.
Yeah, obviously, you know, your TC Esports Visceral are ones that we're expecting to go very, very strong around here. Some teams, though, that maybe we saw go quite strong in the previous round might not do so well this time. Obviously, EMM, you said before about Darren McCormack, I think it's Mikko Schmidt the other one in that. And don't get me wrong, they're obviously 2 pretty potent drivers, but coming up against some of the very best on Gran Turismo. Look, they had their good go last season. I think for them, they're not expecting to go all the way through into the final and win. But hey, there's 4 teams in the final. They might be one of them.
There's one name that you highlighted that I neglected to mention, but that's because I was waiting to remind everyone that our winners on Live for Speed were Visceral Esports, and what a fun event that was, diving back in terms of old school simulators, but Visceral EMM BS Plus competition. There's only 3 points covering our top 3, Lewis, because in the ERL, every position in the end of day standings is worth a point, and that's why consistency across the 4 regular season rounds is going to be crucial. No one really, I would say, on the back foot in terms of our regular expected contenders at the front.
I mean, look, when we take a look at this, I think the only ones that are like seriously out of position would be Team Nitro in 11th spot. We expect them to be in the top 4. They did not have a good round out there on LFS, and we kind of expect them to maybe step it up, but they've got their 2 pretty normal drivers, relatively speaking, and not Gran Turismo specialists in Tobias Grunewald and Nicholas Halban out in action today. They'll be targeting some solid points, knowing that 11th place is certainly not out of it. Looking back at the previous season, you mentioned that consistency is the most important bit. That is not winning rounds consistently, that's just being up there consistently. We mentioned last round about Coanda last season having won a couple of finals, got into the final on an extra occasion. They were right up there, but the 2 rounds they struggled on cost them a position in those transfer spots, and they weren't one of the teams that took us to the finale, obviously earlier on in the year.
Team Nitro finished 11th in the last Gran Turismo round. They'll want to try and better that one, I would say, though, because you are right. Of all the teams, they are maybe most out of position. The pick and ban phase of the 10 tracks available are top 5 championship teams, all given the opportunity to remove one from the list. And slowly but surely, we eliminated a couple of real-world tracks, but also some of the Gran Turismo staples, and it left 5 then on the board. And so the 5 championship teams, well, Vitality, a bit of surprise to see them pick Nürburgring Sprint. You would have thought they would have wanted maybe one of the tracks only available on Gran Turismo, but Williams F1 Team Gaming picking that way as well. The other 3 teams going in different directions. It means, Lewis, we're racing at the Nürburgring Sprint circuit here tonight.
Boo! No, it's fine. Look, obviously,
I agree.
Sprint
For the record,
it's fine. It's going to be a bit of fun. Obviously, we got the S15s take round there, about 300 brake horsepower, so nothing too major. They're not going to be going around at the same speed as what we had the last time we were racing on Gran Turismo in this competition. But yeah, I actually completely agree. It's very interesting to see Vitality picking this track, mostly because between Kylian Drummond and Kai De Bruyne, they have 2 really strong drivers on this platform that arguably coming into it as maybe the favourites, one of the favourites. They're a team that we expect to see in the final at a bare minimum today, right?
Well, they did win last year's Gran Turismo round, so I think I agree with you. Favourites, if not expected to reach the finals, especially given 4 teams in the finals.
Exactly. So it is a surprise they've picked a more normal circuit that, effectively those drivers that might be kind of out of touch a little bit more with Gran Turismo and some of the nuances. I'd almost be sat there thinking, I want this to be as difficult as possible for you. And so I would pick a circuit which you're almost certainly not going to be familiar with. And Gran Turismo has such a good rostrum of fictional circuits, which a lot of obviously drivers like Samjo, like Drummond, like De Bruyne, they're all well versed with, that a lot of the other specialists across the esports world don't know.
Now, these drivers and teams have all had about 24 hours to do their practice. Final moments of preparation. The Team Nitro drivers, at the very least, have got wheels and pedals that work on PlayStation as well, so that's a nice treat. What, again, I really want to know is Dara McCormack, is he in bed with the...
Was he in bed last time?
With the controller in his hand and feet kicked up, Lewis. He was having the best time of his life, especially because I think they got eliminated early enough that he could just go straight to sleep.
Do you know what? I respect it. I do respect it. I don't know about you. I'm not. I can't sit back and relax. I can't do the whole sit back and relax and play games. Obviously it's the whole you're playing FIFA, you sit back, you get yourself nice and casual, then someone else scores a goal against you, and suddenly it is leant forward, eyes right on the screen. That's how I have to do all sim racing games when I'm playing on controller. I can't sit back like that.
I've got to say, first sight of these cars, and instantly, even without the great liveries that we have, it is a treat to see the car carving its way around the sprint layout again of the Nürburgring. So we're not racing the full configuration. We kind of take the shortcut like they do in VLN races, and then it's the heavier braking zone of the chicane, which at the end of the lap, which likely will lead to some decent passing opportunities. But our first heat teams getting their practice underway. Remember, we've got Visceral, Williams F1 Team Gaming, Al's Esports, 92 Esports, and Thomas Eng Sim Racing. I would say good opportunity here for these teams to get some points on the board to start the night off.
You know, again, top 3 teams move their way through, means the likelihood of you moving through is now above 50%, which is always quite nice. That dramatically decreases as the evening goes on, so you know, make the most of it. And like I say, for looking at these teams, not 100% sure as to who's going to be looking the favourites to move through. I think qualifying around here, one of the things that we know about the Nürburgring sprint layout, it is a tricky track to get those moves done. Obviously, Gran Turismo 7's quite handy for helping some of those overtakes, but slipstream and a big send down the inside at T1 will surely help. But I think track position is going to be very, very critical, at least at this point in the competition.
Alessandro Bico, Noah Lanauza on the right-hand side there for the aptly named Williams F1 Team Gaming. That's not a mouthful to say during the action of a race by any means.
Do you think?
No, it's totally easy, very easy, simple. Just like the what was that one? There was a few team names during the NLS that were a mouthful to say that I would have to go and read off the entry list.
All right. That's flex.
No, just saying. These drivers again in their rigs, and I would assume for Alessandro Bico it's the same rig that he would race on iRacing, looking very, very comfortable, as we're just working through some technical issues for some drivers. So an extended practice session right now, Lewis, which again I don't think is the worst thing for some of these drivers with less Gran Turismo experience.
Yeah, I mean, you would say like they've probably been practicing on Gran Turismo a fair amount recently, right? So even if you've not got any real experience on the platform, you'll have been putting the work in. Obviously not knowing necessarily what track we'd be racing at, but you've got the list of circuits that we could be racing at. You know what car we will be racing in, and so they will have been putting the laps in anyway, just to get a feel for it, get set up, get in the right mind space, and see how to get the car to the limit. Obviously, Gran Turismo being one of the most popular platforms of all time in our small niche of esports. There's so many videos on YouTube kind of effectively giving you the lowdown as to how to get these cars around the circuit. You can find quite a lot of the information. Obviously, I know all the drivers can kind of figure it out themselves, but at any moment of doubt, there is hundreds of hours of YouTube content that they can go through and kind of find that extra secret sauce.
The secret sauce may end up being in knowing when and how to race around the allowance of Gran Turismo. That's something that often we talk about across different platforms, the way the netcode works and how you want to race your competition, and that's maybe where those World Series specialists may have an extra advantage beyond just the regular pace and comfort that they'll take from being here on Gran Turismo 7. Now, I'm trying to remember how qualifying is going to work if it's drivers with the track to themselves, but if we're seeing them all together as they head out onto the first sector here at the sprint layout again of the Nürburgring and get underway for the first of our qualifying sessions tonight.
Can tell you though that as much as they are out on circuit with each other, there is no slipstream games possible. That's been disabled during qualifying, so they can't slipstream off of each other. They're kind of driving around. Also, the important bit as well, as far as my understanding is from what I'm reading here, they only get one timed lap here, so really, really important to get that one on the board, especially around the circuit where abusing track limits is pretty easy, particularly at the chicane.
There's a few places here actually where I would assume that if you're a little bit wide, you can incur a penalty as well. I would assume coming back out of the Mercedes-Benz arena, sweep out onto the left a bit too aggressively, that could pick something up too. So definitely something to keep in mind. There's two drivers a team, but you want both drivers, I would say, relatively up the order here in qualifying, and time on the board to just put that one lap in. All our drivers trying to get a little bit of clean at least separation between them so they can focus on hitting their marks. A bit of a drift there. There's no traction control in this car. And that Williams F1 Team gaming machine slides its way to the start of the time lap.
300 brake horsepower there, all put through the rear wheels, causing a bit of a slide through that final corner for Lanuza. Now down into the opening turn, where again find that braking point just right into the apex, and because of this car, it does have a lot of heritage and drifting and stuff. I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot of that this afternoon, trying to pitch that car in at the opening corner. And there was a little bit of sliding happening there from Lanuza, I've got to say.
I was just taking a look at our notes from the great team at the IGTL who are helping us with this event. This car is effectively running as a GT4. Now, GT4s in the real world do have traction control and are quite reliant on it. There are some GT4s with a lot of electronic gubbins behind the brains of the car, and so this is a very different challenge. They do have ABS and brake balance, which I would assume is biased, so those are the two things that are helping them out. Those are apparently okay in terms of track limits, so that is the bounds of what Gran Turismo deems are permissible. I have different opinions there. Which of the Ferrari Formula 1 drivers is looking over the shoulder and might have their own opinions on track limits?
I mean, look, I'm gonna take a wild stab in the dark here. We're looking at Spanish driver Alonso. I'm going to take a wild guess that it's Alonso. It's just a wild guess. Quite hard to tell from there, but we'll guess with it. Onto the back stretch, though, for Alonso. We'll get those first, I'll say those first times in, the first times of the night in, and see where this field is going to find their way. Moreno, the first one across the line.
Into the heavier of the braking zones. Remember, that could be one of the passing opportunities. About 7/10 covering the times on the board so far. A slightly slower time there from Janda. Lanuza's dropped himself into second, it would appear. Just wait for that time to appear. Alessandro Bica, though, his teammate, way down the board. So it's not much of a difference in terms of time, but it's going to lead to a drastically different position. And my goodness, 92 Esports, 1 and 2 in qualifying.
Yeah, solid effort there in the opening qualifying session of the night. Just a single lap, and so that is qualifying done. They're preparing themselves for a race where that run down into turn one, I think, is going to be quite important here, Arjuniers. Obviously, the first time that, as much as I know they would have practiced race starts and all this stuff, the other, but I still think a lot of the other teams might be taking a close look at this to see how T1's going to go.
Samuel Moreno, one of the youngest drivers in the Gran Turismo scene, is 57 thousandths of a second clear of Mateo Estevez, one of the favorites on the night after coming 7th on Live for Speed, with the Williams F1 Team gaming machine 3rd on the board. And again, just look at these margins, a second between the top 8. And so for our team cars, remember, that's what's important here. There's very little separation between a handful of them. The Visceral Esports pair up there as well for Simon Rosenberger and Sammy Joe Abinakel. So I think they're going to be in for another solid night, it would seem, Lewis, after winning on Live for Speed. Visceral backing it up, at least in qualifying so far.
I mean, obviously, last round they had a great trio of drivers. Obviously, it was 3 drivers back on Live for Speed. Isaac Price leading them to the front, but let's not forget they were a strong contingent across the board with Yoni Kattler and Christoph Karakas as well. But it does seem as though as a quintet, as the 5 drivers, they're starting out with some pretty solid speed. Again, looking at Visceral as a team, they're not a team that I would be particularly surprised if they got all the way through to the final. I still think Visceral are the firm favourites, but just because you're a favourite doesn't mean that it's a guarantee. Nothing's a guarantee in this kind of competition. R8G last season were one of the favourites to get through into the absolute final when we went racing in Maastricht, and they definitely didn't get that far.
Just rubbing the salt on the wound at this point.
No problem.
I'll remind everyone that at least Vitality, as they're now known, who didn't advance, made their way all the way into the finals. Was that jump start from Moreno, or is that just the way it looked as they very slowly get off the line, putting all that power down? We're underway for the first time tonight on Gran Turismo 7 and firing ourselves down the hill at the Nürburgring sprint layout. Rosenberger on the outside, hung out to dry and dropped down to 6th instantly as our teammates up front slot single file in through the Mercedes-Benz arena. Lanuza down to 3rd position as he tried to fight for position momentarily. but a rather tidy start, all things considered.
Alessandro Bico was getting pretty aggressive into the opening corner, now going around the outside of Rosenberger, and I think might pick that one off as well. That's pretty aggressive. We've got one of the Thomas Eng sim racing cars now in Schmiel trying to make his progress through. A couple of Czech drivers battling over 8th and 9th. Very aggressive on the start, though, from Bico into the opening corner. Was not afraid of putting his Williams 2, maybe even 3 wide at one point.
Got to be aggressive on these starts before the separation builds. That's the easiest time to make your advantage. And from here, the separation's surely going to build once we head onto the brakes heavily for the first time down at the end of this back straightaway. Teammates got to decide if they want to reorder themselves, but they'll stay 8th and 9th positions for the time being. Rosenberger not able to get to the inside of Alessandro Bico, and so as we end the first lap of the race, Bico making a small mistake. Rosenberger caught on the wrong side, straight up the inside for one of the Thomas Eng sim racing cars, but not the other.
Really, again, feeling very comfortable at the moment. Is Bico going on the attack side by side between Jana and Alonso in last position. Bico down in 7th, trying to get past Schmiel again. Is going aggressive on the defence, rather, down into the opening corner. Pulls the train back over to the left-hand side of the circuit. Right-hand side, he's screened into the braking zone of the opening corner as Jana's trying to keep Rosenberger at bay. Bico with the big move to the inside again for Williams, and he'll force that door open.
Now, what does race control have to say about all of this? Because remember, we do have our team of stewards. They will award penalty points. And so you take the driver's positions, you add them up, the lowest score, then adding your penalty points in. The top 3 teams, remember, move forward directly into the semi-finals. It's only a 6-lap race, very easy to get yourself caught out, and that's exactly what these 5 at the back have started to do.
Yeah, they are. They're fighting almost. Well, I say almost. They're definitely fighting too hard for what they're fighting over. They're allowing that top grouping to pull away. These are not long races. One thing we would expect is these tyres over 6 laps. Not going to be a major deal, but they will overheat a little bit if you're pushing too hard. So I'm sure they'll be focused on that. It's not a worry in qualifying, but could be a little bit of a worry in the race. Don't suspect it'll really crop up as a major concern for any of the drivers, but definitely something to keep an eye on if you are going to be fighting that hard. The 92 Esports cars then still running 1st and 2nd at the moment. Effectively, well, I say effectively, it is going to be a guarantee that they'll be moving through in their current spots. Gotta say, by the way, Arjuna, absolutely love the look of their cars.
No, first time I saw them in practice, I was blown away. Now, the problem is, for Moreno, you can see the red on top of his car. When we run down the back straight next time, I think he's picked up track limits at the chicane. And so that's... Whoa! Well, Lanuza didn't need to do that. Overcommits down into turn 1, tags the rear, and now has checked up the momentum of Moreno. The leader breaks away slightly. Abinakal closes in very briefly in that Visceral Esports number 46. But yeah, Moreno going to be in for a little bit more pain coming down the back straight.
Yeah, that'll be very frustrating to have got that punt at turn 1, drops him a little bit off of his teammate Estevez, so that gap grows to potentially around the 2nd mark. Moreno will most certainly lose the position to Lanuza, probably to Samijo Abinakal as well. Will probably lose the 2 positions, I suspect, with that 1 second penalty. There is the slowing down building up, so that'll happen on the back stretch. At the moment, my guess for teams that are moving through, obviously you've got 92, you've got Williams. I'm not sure who the other team is. Visceral will be very close because of Rosenberger's position. Whoa, Moreno, careful.
Well, there's certainly safer ways to serve your penalties, but at the very least, he only gave up 1 spot, Lewis. My goodness me.
Wow, that was close to losing it, at least from our view. It's one of those ones where you've probably been like, yes, that was nothing, mate. I don't know what you're talking about. But that looked pretty terrifying, at least from my view. 3 laps into the books, I believe. And Estevez is leading. This fight, though, is just not giving up. Incredible stuff back here. Unfortunately, it's for 8th position.
Yeah, it's not where they would want to be. The benefit of this heat is there's 1 less team than the other heat. So, I wonder if that will potentially mean even more chaos in the 2 heats that we've got remaining. Big send down the outside. Rosenberger qualified well, but has just not been able to connect all the dots in the race itself. Left on the outside through the long left-hander, dropping down now in the final part of the Mercedes-Benz arena, and dropped down to the tail end of the field.
Yeah, Visceral at the moment not looking to score particularly well here, but with the other positions, I mean, look, I think at the moment they'd be fourth. Owls would actually be the one to progress through. They would be the third team here because Thomas Egg Sim Racing was 7th and 9th, and obviously that would total to 16 points. It would be 10 and 4th for the Visceral team. Owls with just 5th and 8th would get through, I think, by just a single point at the moment. So might be a couple more than that, but yeah, they're at the moment. They're the ones in position to go through with Williams and 92.
I think it's if Rosenberger gets to 9th, that's enough for Visceral to tie Owl. So all he needs to do, and that's what the team manager's job needs to be now in the communication, because maybe easy to assume just watching the way the car's being thrown around, but Rosenberger's driving angry, only needs to gain 1 spot. Let the cars in front maybe tussle, make a mistake, and the door could open like it does here. Out of the final corner, great draft from the 2 in front of him, and they snake their way down to turn 1. On the drop off the hill, gotta be careful not to overcommit under the brakes. The Owls car, Alonso deep on the inside. Look at Rosenberger try and go the long way around. It was never quite gonna work out though, Lewis. Thomas Eng Sim Racing up the inside.
I mean, look, if Alonso loses position for Owls, it's basically done as well. And might just do it there as Schmill looks down the inside and will try and commit that Thomas Egg Sim Racing car to get through into 8th position. There's the move coming in. Bit of an elbow check, bit of contact, and the position has been lost for Alonso. Owls at the moment would not be progressing. Rosenberger's going to make it slightly worse as they come down into the loop.
Inside on the shortcut, though. That's the important part. And that puts the power down nicely. That was clinically done eventually. These drivers have been fighting far too long. Now, job's not quite done, Lewis, because these 3 have been fighting so hard that they've let the others run away, and so Rosenberger can't quite be content just yet. Alonso makes a mistake as they sweep onto the back straightaway, and now ice forward for the Visceral number 1.
Yeah, at the moment it's Visceral, 92 in Williams. Those would be the 3 teams at present progressing. Big clip of the curb as they work their way through the chicane. They are not afraid of slamming these S15s over that. The battle for 2nd position directly ahead. Lanuza keeping Moreno at bay. Estevez has gone. 92 want this to be a 1-2 in the opening race of the night, and they've certainly got the pace to steal that one away.
Now this is interesting because not just Rosenberger and Alonso fighting for 9th and 10th, but that fight between Owls and Viscerals up here for 4th and 5th as well. So keep an eye on that as we're on the final lap of the race. Moreno's going to try the cutback. Did he get tagged? Did he get tagged by Abby Knuckle there?
I think he might have actually slammed the curb on the inside. It's such an aggressive drop-off in the inner part of the opening corner, and I get the feeling that Moreno might have slammed that. If not, there might have been a contact with Sammy Joe Abby Knuckle, but I don't think that's... It's one of those ones, if I were in race control, I'd almost completely ignore that. It's a little bit of a brush there. No one spun round. The race continues. Don't get involved. Like, it's fine. They're battling hard at the moment for the runner-up position in the opening race. Estevez has absolutely checked out from this fight after that slow-down penalty from Moreno. Still could be that 1-2 for 92, but Williams at the moment hanging on.
Great stuff. What a great opening race of our Esports Racing League action on Gran Turismo 7. A little bit more feisty than what we saw last time as well. So the IGTL organizers knew exactly what I was asking for and managed to pick the perfect car. But all as Mateo Estevez breaks away at the front of the field. Fight for the 2nd and 3rd steps of the podium still well and truly on. But no, Lanuza will hold on to 2nd. It's 92 Esports after 7th in the opening round of the championship, winning the first heat of the night here on Gran Turismo 7. And there's the smile on the face of the leading car as he comes across the line.
Brilliant stuff there from Estevez. And to be fair, from Estevez and Moreno, the pair of them look great in qualifying. They look great during the race. Just a slow down penalty for Moreno cost them the 1-2. But, I mean, you're not going to be disappointed at that 1st and 3rd for 92 and a definite progression through. Williams and Visceral should be the 2 teams to join. Obviously, the big question mark on all that, Arjuna, is race control.
And I've been told 1 report, so at least 1 thing for them to take a look at. as Mateo Estevez, winner of the opening race of the night, and in some style as well, breaking away when his teammate got that penalty, and Noah Lanuza then had to watch in the rearview mirrors and defend. A 2-second margin of victory. We'll find out if that's going to end up being one of the larger ones in the heats. Moreno third, makes it a 1-3 for 92 Esports, with the best of the Visceral cars then fourth, best of the Owl cars in fifth. Williams F1 Team Gaming second and sixth should combine for them to move forward. Thomas Eng Sim Racing, their best car, down in seventh with Janda. Rosenberger fights his way back up to eighth and the second of the Visceral machines, while Chmel for Thomas Eng Sim Racing and Alonso for Owls round out the 10 in heat number 1. Well, Lewis, like I said, a bit more action-packed than what we had in our last event on Gran Turismo 7, and I'm not complaining about that, that's for sure.
I think the movement away from, high downforce open wheelers into your tin tops with effectively low power, comparatively to some of the cars we've raced here in ERL, certainly not a bad shout. It does generally provide that a little bit better race. You can kind of see there as the race was starting to spread out a little bit. Moves were quite hard later on in the race. I think that is going to play its part throughout the night, where drivers will be wanting to get those moves in early, will be wanting to get aggressive on that opening lap, as that's where all those moves can really come in, as those opening couple of laps. Alessandro Bico was perfectly comfortable getting his elbows out in the opening portion, and I don't hate to see it. I think it's absolutely fine.
And I'm wondering what race control is going to say, because, the first race will set the bar, I guess, for the rest of the night in terms of how contacts will be judged. Again, no traction control, but there is ABS. So at a track like this, where you do have, like you said, the curb on the inside of turn 1, but also the undulation as you come off the corner and try and put the power down, there's all these different things that can come into play. And so plenty, I think, for our drivers to be thinking about. This is an interesting combo. As much as maybe we maligned the teams that picked it, it's producing an interesting challenge, I guess, at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, look, it is obviously a good track. It's a well-loved track by a lot of people. I will perfectly admit, Arjuna, I'm not one of them. I've never enjoyed the Nürburgring Grand Prix, be it the sprint or the full. But, look, some of the drivers are getting along well with it. And do you know what? It's providing some decent racing so far. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that is going to be the way it's going to progress in the races coming up this evening.
Picking up what you're putting down, let's take a look at some of the moments that we saw in that first heat of the night. Our first action on Gran Turismo 7 here in 2026. Decent start from our teammates at the front of the field as we drop down into turn 1. Moreno on the outside, Estevez on the inside as we headed out of the Mercedes-Benz arena. Rosenberg dropping down after qualifying quite well, bullied off the track initially, and then down at the end of the lap through the slower chicane, dropped to the tail end of the field. That set up the fight back for him as he tried to bring his team in straight to the semi-finals, but it did lead to some fighting with the likes of Owls, Esports, as well as Thomas Eng Sim Racing. Moreno running second, ran off the track and then got ran into down at turn 1 by Noah Lanuza, and in the act of serving the penalty, made things look a bit more dramatic than maybe they were. All as the action roared on at the tail end of the field, these were going to be crucial moves from Rosenberger at the end of the day, as he fought his way up from 10th to 8th to grab crucial points to bring Visceral forward directly into the semi-finals. Some big bounces over the curbs as drivers got to grips with 300 horsepower in these S14s, while Alonso and Chmel fighted for 8th and 9th positions. Rosenberger sat and waited, plotted his course forward, try and make his move up through the order, slowly would pick his way forward. Down the shortcut, he'd make his way past on Alonso. And then while Noah Lanuza defended on the penultimate laps of the race from Moreno and Abby Knackle, Mateo Estevez won the first race of the night. But 92 Esports, a first and third, as they grabbed Heat 1 honors in the Esports Racing League. Lots of action to reflect on now, Lewis, as we get set to add another team into the mix for Heat number 2.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm very excited to see what we're going to get in Heat 2, if that's what we're going to get from Heat 1, of course. Not the 5 teams, we're having the 6. So now it is straight up 50% your chance of working your way through, which sounds great, is definitely not as easy as it sounds. And, of course, to talk of the teams, we've got EMM in this one. We're going to be having Vitality in this one. Definitely a team that we're expecting. We've said before about going through into the final. TC Esports, Team Nitro, HGE, and of course Samantha Tan Sim Racing. I'm excited for that. I don't know which of the 3. I'm pretty confident I would put a bet on Vitality. The rest of it, I'm really not sure. TC Esports, I reckon, will be one of them as well, surely.
Yeah, you know, TC have got to be a contenders. I think, unfortunately, for EMM, they, as much as Mikhail Schmiedel did honor himself quite well last time, if I'm remembering correctly, yeah. I don't think that pairing is likely to be the strongest. I don't know. That 3rd and final spot could be the one to keep an eye out for. We do have Samantha Tan Racing, who have a couple of Gran Turismo more main drivers as well, so they could be one to watch. We'll see. We'll have to wait and see. And I guess qualifying is going to prove to play important as well, because I think track positioning down to turn 1 is important, because look at how Rosenberg on the outside got very much hung out to dry.
Yeah, look. I think I said it earlier that I think qualifying is going to be important. The track position is going to be important. I think it's kind of one of those ones. It's going to be important across the entirety of the evening, because, like I've said, overtaking early is going to be really, really important. And if you are back in, say, for example, 8th position, 9th, 10th, towards the back end of what these groups are going to be, your chances of progressing actually kind of drop through the floor, because you've got to make that progress really, really early. So here's a look at our drivers, and as much as we've said, Vitality are realistically the favourites to potentially take this one with Kai De Bruyne and Killian Drummond. Obviously, a lot of very good drivers out on this field. Our typical esports driver, our typical sim racing drivers that come from all the ones that we'd normally see in ERL, being Team Nitro and EMM. Those 2 teams may well struggle against a more Gran Turismo known audience.
Absolutely. Sorry, I have to unmute myself if I want to be able to talk. And that's why, again, I go back to Samantha Tan, because in at least Cyrus Cross, I've seen him do a backflip, by the way, at Laguna Seca, at the corkscrew. So not only is he physically much more talented than me, he's much quicker on Gran Turismo 7 as well, Lewis, which I know I'm setting a low bar, but I think that experience could really help you in these sort of situations where you mentioned that the drivers knew what car they were going to be in. They knew what tracks that were going to be part of that pick and ban phase, but it's a lot more limited practice than a lot of esports drivers are comfortable with usually having.
I mean, I think, you know, when you get onto a platform which you've got your Gran Turismo experts, we kind of had this a little bit even on some of the other platforms, even when we raced RaceSport and stuff last season and whatnot. Sometimes it's good to throw them into a car that a lot of the top drivers are relatively unfamiliar with. That's why I'm quite excited to see iRacing, obviously, next round when we're taking on the TCRs. Not that many of the top drivers are completely unfamiliar with them, but it's not the most common vehicle that a lot of these drivers will be taking across the circuit. But focusing here and now on the Nürburgring short circuit and the practice session before we head into qualifying once again. You can see those names on the left-hand side, and I mean, look, I've got to ask you, who's moving? Who are going to be the teams to move through right now? Go on. I think we can agree on one of them. Probably agree on 2 of them.
I can't come to a decision on the 3rd, Lewis. I've been racking my brains. What I can tell you is I think this is probably the only time Dara McCormack's going to be at the top of the timesheets, at least in the race. Yeah, it's not. Do we have him on camera? Can we see if he's got a controller or if he's got a steering wheel? Because that will tell us a lot about how seriously he's taking this tonight, and that's an important part of this discussion.
We can't see him. We can't. He's flying under the radar. Obviously, taking
that's
it so
how you know
seriously.
He's probably on a controller, and therefore.
No, he's taking it so seriously. He doesn't want anyone else to see. That's it. He's actually he's got, you know, one of those rigs where it's like a full surround rig.
Oh, I do.
Yeah. Maybe he's in one of those. He's spent the dosh.
He's gone to a manufacturer rig.
Oh, right.
Yeah, you know, I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah, sounds realistic to me.
I'm still struggling on that third team. Again, I think it's going to be all about qualifying, coming out, and well, we saw that one driver in the race found track limits a problem, so clearly it is something in qualifying as well, Lewis, that these drivers are maybe threading a needle, especially through that chicane. So well, we'll see how things go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be brave. By the way, love the Vitality. It's a bit more. I will say it's not their typical yellow. That's a bit more like high vis yellow. Maybe it is their typical yellow. It just kind of looks a bit more. There's a little bit more of a green in there, you know, almost like a Valentino Rossi yellow, you know.
Yeah, it's trending towards that Aston Martin yellow that they ran on the GT LM cars, you know, for a little bit. I got to say, it doesn't matter what livery you throw on it, and they're all great in the field tonight, but this car, it's gorgeous.
She's a good-looking number. I will say, great choice in the S15. You know, I love the aero kit on it. I love the look of the car. And I like how it races. So it's ticks across the board for me. And clearly, the team's been working hard to get the liveries for each of the teams to work on Gran Turismo. And liveries are always the most recognisable thing for a given team. Yes, you've got all the names and stuff. You should be able to associate them, but sometimes we just don't. And so it is just straight up livery. Tell me what I've got.
That's a big bounce on the inside curve, but it looks a lot less aggressive off-board than it does on-board, doesn't it? So something for us to keep in mind, Lewis, as we begin the first of our time laps.
See what they're going to be aiming for in this session. Who's going to be on the front row? Obviously, it was a front row lockout for 92 Esports last time. Kylian Dramont working his way down the start-finish straight, and De Bruyne's not too far behind, but plenty of space between them. A reminder, if you didn't join us for the opening qualifying, there is no slipstream in the qualifying session, and they only get the single lap. Yes, they're all out on circuit together, but I don't think they can make contact, and they certainly can't slipstream off each other, so it's just odd markers around the circuit. Heading through the Mercedes Arena section towards the right-hander to depart it, and obviously abusing that track limit on the exit. I agree with you, Arjuna. Bin them all.
Yeah, no, I'm not a huge fan about that, but you know, if that's what the game's allowing, we'll let them get away with that. It's not their fault. They're using what they're allowed. Much more sane track limits at this part of the track, mainly because there's not much further you can go beyond the painted curb if you don't want to slow yourself down. This is where, if you're getting a penalty during the race, that yellow arrow on the right side, you'll slow down right around there, pull to the side of the track, but no slowing down in qualifying and up to the heavier braking zone. This is where in the race it presents passing opportunities, but in qualifying, bang, down through the gears, bang over the curbs as well, looking a lot less dramatic than it will feel like if you're sitting on board with these cars, and then ride the curb on the outside to open up the entry into that final hairpin. Hesitated on the steering, had to turn in a couple of times, but now power down to the line.
I mean, far from me to judge the driving of Kylian Dramont, one of the best on Gran Turismo 7s. That's a 138, 136 across the board. See what De Bruyne's going to do across the line behind. Also, I was going to say it's 138 something. I'm pretty sure I saw that one pop up. It's Smeda was a 38.694. Taglia goes for a 40.1. Not seeing that time come through for De Bruyne. He was the next car behind Dramont.
I think he may have invalidated that lap.
Must have.
I also think, by the way, that if Samantha Tan Racing's time stand, Tobias Gronewold's going to need to put in a banker to, oh, and he does, to put himself in contention. It might end up being STR versus Team Nitro for one of our qualifying spots. And we're still waiting for three big names to put times on the board. Is that track limits? We'll see if we can find out.
Well, Koke Lopez has just set a 38.578 to move up into third. So for TC Esports, it'll be them up the order. But big drama here as Darren McCormack did not set a time in that session, nor did Kai De Bruyne. So for Visceral, for Vitality rather, who we've been talking about so far, I mean, we've got him on the board here, and I did see it being a 138, 136, and I was confused there. Set the exact same time as his teammate. Now I'm going to assume that the timing tower was confused. They both set the same time. and we're going to keep our fingers crossed that that's the case. So it could be a visceral 1-2 then. They'll be starting up there. Vitality, I'm getting my V's mixed up. It's Drummond, De Bruyne, Arriagada, and Lopez for TC Esports. Great from them. Mikkel Schmiedel for EMM will qualify in 5th position, with Hernans, Cross, and Nicholas Hauben for Team Nitro in 8th position. Hugely dramatic qualifying session there, and if this is to be believed, then we actually have the running order as we were expecting. Grunewald, Barretto, then it is Battaglia and McCormack, the 12-car field. Arjuna?
Well, at first I'm a bit in shock, because it's not often that you get lap times like that, identical to split the front row. It also kind of backs up, I think, what we were thinking, which is that, you know, it's not a quite guarantee, but all but guaranteed that Vitality and TC will move forward in the question about that 3rd spot. Team Nitro versus Samantha Tan Racing. I think that's the battle to keep an eye on right now. And keeping it clean on this start, avoiding mistakes, avoiding those penalty points, could all be crucial in this next 6-lap affair that we've got in front of us, Lewis.
Yeah, must keep it clean, and realistically, you want to be one of those 3 teams progressing. No one wants to go into the second chance race. For Vitality, it's been the perfect start here. It's a 1-2 for Drummond and De Bruyne, straight over to give the slipstream to the teammate, although De Bruyne looks back to the outside as TC Esports all over on that second row with Arriagada trying to attack down into T1. De Bruyne will hang on and will keep second position. There is a big crash in the background, and that might be Arriagada. It's both the TC Esports cars. They've both gone backwards. Koke Lopez and Arriagada are both backwards at T1.
Well, throw that one out the window. A lot of work now for the black and gold to do, as they'll try and pick that ball out of the back of the net. Where are they going to cycle down? That's the real question. All as Vitality break away at the front, looking to go back-to-back on Gran Turismo 7 here in the Esports Racing League. Grunewald out wide and scampers over the grass as they now shortcut through the right and rejoin the back half of the Nürburgring Grand Prix lap.
What was it that you said about Mikkel Schmiedel in last round? You know, he did really well for himself in EMM. And, you know, what's he going to be able to do this time? He's in 3rd, mate. He's doing fine. Mikkel Schmiedel. I think, look, I've seen Schmiedel in sim racing for a long old time, and do you know what? I think he is coming into his own in the world of sim racing over the last sort of 12 months. Don't get me wrong, he's been rapid before, one of the fastest we've had before, but it does seem as though he's getting like a second wind in his career and is once again becoming like the Enzo Benito ultimate all-rounder.
Yeah, but he's not figured out how to put the livery on the car, Lewis, so, you know...
Nor McCormack.
Okay, fair. So take away points from him and the teammate.
Yeah.
This is the problem, though. At one point, Schmiedel sitting in 3rd meant that McCormack finishing in 10th might still have been enough. But now, with, at the very least, Lopez and Hernans going through, and I think Arriagada is going to slip through as well, McCormack finishing at the tail end of this field makes it almost impossible for EMM to slip through. They need Schmiedel to defend like a lion for that 3rd position and then hope results go in their favor. On the other hand, for TC, there is no way the results are really going to go in their favor right now. They've got a lot of work to do.
So much work. Obviously, we have no idea exactly what happened down there in the opening corner, but hugely dramatic for TC Esports, and they'll be fighting hard to come back through. They would be a team I suspect will get through the second chance race with relative ease, but then only 3 go through from that, and they only get to pick 1 driver, and they've already gone backwards in this one. So who really knows on that one? There is no such thing as relative ease when it comes to the top level of sim racing. And look, it's great to see TC Esports running strong. It's great to see them as a fast-firing team and as a potential favourite for the evening. But a big shame for what happened down there at the opening corner. Koke Lopez is fast enough, and he is scything his way through, already up to 8th position. I still wouldn't necessarily be completely shocked, Arjuna, if they were able to find themselves as the 3rd and final team to progress.
No, and that's why I said Schmiedel's got to defend, because I think there is a chance that if Arriagada and Lopez finish 6th and 7th, then that is tying Schmiedel and McCormack for 3rd and 12th, or rather 3rd and 10th. So there's plenty of math to do, but there's so many different permutations that we can still work through. Team Nitro, though, with Now Nicholas Halban dropping to the back of the field, and Tobias Gronewold defending all the way to the wall as Lopez tries to cut to the inside. Battaglia is going to sweep down around the outside as they drop down in towards turn 1. This is getting a bit aggressive and feisty as they drop down at the bottom of the hill, put the power down, and Koke Lopez around the outside of Battaglia. That is one of the better moves I think we'll see tonight.
Yeah, it was really good from Lopez. He got a brush from Hernandez. Wow, and straight into the side of Hernandez comes Arriagada. That was very aggressive. Battaglia is now coming straight back around the outside of Lopez. It's HGE versus TC Esports, a couple of rows deep. Now Arriagada's back onto the rear end of his teammate, gives that bump heading down into the loop. Now Lopez will come through. Arriagada also through. Both of the HGE Esports cars going backwards a couple of spots. Extremely aggressive, proper touring car racing this.
And you know, Lewis, I'm going to ignore what's happening because the math as it works out right now means Samantha Chan Racing are going to be quite comfortably second on the positions at the end of this, and third likely to be EMM. Now, TC Esports are starting to pick their way up to 7th and 8th positions, but still, Schmiedel and McCormack are combining for 14 points. Lopez and Arriagada, as will end the third lap, combining for 15.
Yeah, needs to be a lot more progress for Lopez. I say a lot more, I mean, they've got Tobias Gronewold not too far ahead. If they can both get through on them, that'll swing them a couple of points and potentially give them that. But then obviously with the position in the race, it would be Schmiedel who's having the highest position. So any on count back, it'd go to Schmiedel and EMM. I mean, look, there's a lot of permutations here to deal with, and we're only halfway through the second race of the night. It's Drummond and De Bruyne leading as we were expecting for Vitality as we head to the braking zone of the opening corner again. This is where we must keep our eyes. I do think that Cross and Barreto are potentially too far clear of where Lopez and Arriagada are. So really all they can do is get past Gronewold and kind of hope that Barreto and Cross get past Schmiedel.
And that's why I had said 6th and 7th before, Lewis, is I thought there was a kind of maximum point to where they could go. Yeah. And if they get to 6th and 7th, it goes on to McCormack then to get his way up to 10th position, because then Schmiedel's higher position in this race becomes the tiebreaker. Now, this is all conjecture because we still have no idea what happened at turn 1, what penalty points are going to be handed out, and that ultimately becomes the best of the tiebreakers no matter what happens. So it's a lot that we'll figure out in about 10 minutes time. But for Lopez and Arriagada, we've already seen how willing Gronewold is to go aggressive on the defense. They are a lot closer to Cyrus Cross, though, than I think either of us thought they were, Lewis. So 2 laps to go at the end of this one. Things aren't done.
HGE switching things up, allowing Hernandez to come through on Battaglia. McCormack's a fair way off the back of this. We didn't actually see what happened to Nicholas Oben, so not 100% sure as to what happened to the Team Nitro driver, but certainly was sent back. Obviously a few laps ago now, a couple more left to go in this one, as it's teammates on teammates, and for Team Nitro it's 6th position for Tobias Gronewold. Koke Lopez is closing in and will be knocking at the door of a potential move probably around this lap, but will there be an opportunity to find his way past? That's the big question.
Patience, Lewis, patience. That at this point, that's all they can do, because they were very physical getting through the earlier parts of the traffic that they navigated through. So at this stage, you've run out of those opportunities. Your competition may be that little bit quicker, a little bit more consistent. The teammates may end up swapping around, and Arriagada gonna now lead the charge to try and close up to the German in front.
Arriagada did look a little bit quicker there, the way he was throwing it through the arena section. And I mean, you've got to say, Cross isn't exactly clear of this, so there could well be, I mean, it's unlikely. It's so hard to pass around here. It's so unlikely that Arriagada's going to get past Gronewold and Cyrus Cross, but I mean, you've got to keep that hope and that potential alive. But I mean, even now, since that switch has happened, Tobias Gronewold seems to be holding his own, and as much as Team Nitro are on a trip down into the second chance race, they could be one of the deciding factors here as to whether it is going to be EMM or TC Esports. At the moment, it would be Vitality, it would be Samantha Chan Racing, and it would indeed be EMM.
Lewis, I just love to say, by the way, first, sometimes I can be right. A broken clock is right twice a day. Samantha Chan Racing, there was something to my logic in thinking about picking them, but if EMM can sneak into a semi-final here, they've guaranteed themselves, I forget off the top of my head how many points, but it's enough points for us to say consistency across a championship season, right? And so, Mikkel Schmiedel, I mean, like you said, driving maybe with a bit more wisdom, a bit more experience, it's all coming together and aging like a fine wine. Darren McCormack didn't need to do too much, finishing down there in 11th, which will be unfamiliar for him, but semi-finals beckon as it stands right now.
You're absolutely right. I mean, once you get into the semi-finals, the absolute worst you can be is 12th. There will be 12 teams in the semi-finals. So the worst you can be is one of those 12. You've already guaranteed yourself victory over 5 other cars, and the likely it is one of those teams is going to be pretty dramatic late on in the season. When we look back on this round on the points, we'll be throwing question marks to who's where, and there's always going to be one of those rounds about where you're thinking, oh, they didn't perform there. And obviously for RHG last season, there was a couple of those questions laid at their feet. Obviously it was not here on Gran Turismo 7 where they were victorious, and once again they seem to be starting out as they mean to continue. It is Vitality onto the livery of the cars of the RHG team, and it is Vitality across the line to win. It is Kylian Dremont and De Bruyne going 1 and 2 in the second heat of the night.
Identical in qualifying and almost identical in the race itself. Lewis, it's an ominous sign for the rest of the field that the defending Gran Turismo winners on the Esports Racing League have started off with such a hot streak on the night.
I mean, look, that was a perfect performance from them, wasn't it? An excellent qualifying session from the pair to set themselves up on the front row, and look, it's another puts a smile on your face seeing a performance that good.
Again, and for a team that missed out on what I would have thought would have been an expected spot in the Final Four last year, Lewis, this is, I guess, a good momentum boost to them halfway through the season after, almost halfway through the season, with Live for Speed going pretty well as well.
Yeah, it's certainly not. They're fixing some of the problems of the previous season. That's the important bit, and they're starting out well this season. They're starting out well here on Gran Turismo at the very least. And Vitality first and second. Dremont and De Bruyne, Mikkel Schmiedel, EMM, our champions, of course, of last season. We were racing at Maastricht once again, proving himself very well there. Although concerningly, 4 seconds off of Dremont and De Bruyne, although we're particularly shocked that gap kind of appeared. Barretto and Cross means Samantha Tam Racing were one of those teams to progress through. Tobias Grunewald was able to keep the TC Esports duo of Arriagada and Lopez behind, and Nans was actually able to come through on Koke Lopez there, who actually retired from the race, according to us. So they'll definitely be going through into the second chance race. Battaglia in 9th, McCormack in 10th, Halban in 11th with that retirement from Koke Lopez. Exciting, thrilling, and once again, I think the benchmark's been laid down, Arjuna.
I think there's no question, and for TC, I think that ultimately, Lewis, is going to be a tough start to the night for them. No question about their talent, their pace. We saw that in qualifying to be 3rd and 4th behind the Vitality duo, but not the way they would have wanted that one to go by any means, and I think that's it's going to be a real disappointment for a team that I think had some high expectations here tonight.
Very much so. I mean, look, I still think they'll be relatively comfortable, at least on pace, in the second chance race. In fact, considering some of the other teams that really we're expecting to be in there, obviously from what we saw in Heat 1 and what we're seeing here in Heat 2, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if they can keep themselves. Obviously, I don't know which driver they have racing in there, whether it is Arriagada or Lopez. I wouldn't necessarily be shocked if they're able to qualify in pole position and basically just run away from the rest of them, because pace-wise, they are very much out of position from being in there. So I still think we've got a lot more to talk about for TC Esports this evening. That's what I'll say anyway.
I don't think that's a question. I think we will be talking about them in the semi-finals, especially knowing that there's 12 teams, right, Lewis? So before that, we got plenty of time. Let's see if we can catch up with our race winners. Standing by with Lewis McLeod. I don't think that's a question.
Indeed. Well, we hopefully are joined here by a couple of our winners, and of course, in the commentary booth, we've got ourselves one of the Vitality drivers. Hello, welcome. Obviously, what are you making of the race? That was a great drive.
Yeah, it was good. It was good race for us.
Obviously, what are you making about obviously jumping in last season when you were so strong last season, and how you're running on this season?
We cage, we don't do the same. The win, we just the target is the win, so we do everything for that.
And obviously, you've come into this round as the favourites, right? We've all known that. I mean, you clearly dealt with that pressure so well. Both you and your teammates at exactly the same time in qualifying. Is that the pace you can kind of keep going on throughout the evening?
Yeah, we should do the same. It's pretty funny. We do the same light time, so we will do the same for the after. I think. I guess I hope a lot. So yeah, let's see the next time.
Well, best of luck throughout the rest of the evening. We'll see you once again in the semi-finals.
See you.
Skipping straight through to the semi-finals. We've still got one more heat to go though, Lewis, before we have the second chance race.
Indeed. Well, we'll get by with the highlights, and I'm sure we'll be able to see who's going to be coming out on top and who's going to be moving their way through into the semi-finals, and who's going to be going into the second chance race. Highlights from heat number 2. It was a Vitality 1-2 on the grid with Drummond and De Bruyne starting once again from the front of the field. It was De Bruyne looking to the outside. They both set the exact same time in qualifying. There was contact down to the opening corner. A bit of 2 and 3 wide, and unfortunately for TC Esports, they were the ones paying the price. Koke Lopez dropping back into the clutch of the field along with his teammates Arriagada. McCormack was trying to fend off Hernandez, but then was being pushed out of the way by the TC Esports driver of Arriagada, who was finding his way through and moving up the order as TC Esports were trying to move themselves back into contention to being one of the 3 teams to progress. Tobias Grunewald and Battaglia were going side by side. The HG Esports driver was keeping Koke Lopez at bay. He would go straight around the outside of the Mercedes Arena section with a big look to the inside. In the background, it was Arriagada trying to force the HG Esports driver Hernandez out of the way. Battaglia was pushed out as well, and HG Esports drivers would fight for the scraps behind. At the front, though, it would be Vitality winning 1 and 2 and progressing straight through into the semi-final.
Good race as well, Lewis, I gotta say. I'm really liking how the combos worked, but I guess a lot of credit goes to the car itself. It allows these drivers to race side by side, and like you had mentioned earlier, now that we've kind of moved away from the downforce cars that we had run in the last season of the Esports Racing League, we are seeing a lot more side-by-side and wheel-to-wheel action than we've seen previously.
Yeah, like I said, the low-power tin top is always going to be the way to go when it comes to that. The more power that you put into it, the more downforce you put into it, the harder it is to race. And even around a short circuit like this, those overtakes come in a low-powered tin top car. So that's how things are going to progress throughout the evening. That's how we would suspect things are going to unfold, even in that final where we're going to be having 8 cars. And I'm excited to see it. Here's the standings of Heat 2.
No surprise that Vitality and Samantha Tan move forward, but like we said, EMM sneak through after TC Esports trying to claw their way from the back, unable to, and leaving them Team Nitro maybe in an awkward position as well, with HGE Racing Esport to go into the second chance race. And now our third heat of the night, we'll see BS Plus competition, the Absolute Motorsport Aslith team, Customs GT, Referox Esport, 0 Point Racing, and Yes Motorsport. And BS Plus competition, obviously, I think for them, they've got a couple of their Gran Turismo drivers out on display. Definitely ones to watch. Lewis, who else catches your eye?
I mean, Referox will probably be a pretty strong one in this. Like you said, BS competition, definitely one to keep an eye on. The first ever, at least on the Gran Turismo side of things, the first father-son team in the Absolute Motorsport Aslith team. So that's going to be a fun one to keep an eye out for. And like I say, I'm excited to see it. Obviously, we've got 0 Point Racing, who we're expecting to go quite strong. Later in the season, we'll go racing on RaceRoom. Cody Nikolakovsky in that 118 is a driver that we're expecting to go strong on that platform, along with Tomas Ribeiro. But for here, very curious to see how he's going to get along on GT7. Not sure as to how much experience Latkovsky's got on the platform. The Macedonian's pretty rapid, regardless of what he puts his name to.
Again, it goes back to even on Live for Speed, right, where a lot of the drivers had no experience with it. Some of them may have been born after Live for Speed actually initially came out, but a good racing driver can take like a duck to water at the end of the day. So we'll see who is going to head out there. And in the pressure of qualifying, Lewis, let's not forget, it's just one lap. We saw Dara McCormack have to start from the back, and it made it very difficult for him to work his way forward. Can Danik Elion and Floris Zimmermann avoid that sort of struggle?
I mean, it's just keeping your nose clean into the opening corner, which, as opening corners go, it's not the most forgiving, is it, RG, down to the opening turn? And like I said, with TC Esports in the previous race, they were thrown into it a little bit. There was definitely some contact behind, which is kind of what forced them to. It wasn't contact between the two teammates, it was just unlucky that those two were there. And again, it's one of those ones that highlights that qualifying is critical to kind of keep out of it, but it's not the be-all and end-all, right? TC Esports qualified in the second row, and they still ended up not progressing through. I think that's one of the things to keep an eye on here with Elion and Zimmermann. They're definitely two drivers that we'd expect to be one of those top teams. Floris Zimmermann was pretty strong last time we were on GT7. I expect very much the same thing here.
And he's made his bed as well, so
Good
always good to see. Are we firing off for qualifying? I think we might indeed be. So remember, no draft at play. The drivers are on track together, so they'll get some separation, more just to give themselves no distractions on the lap itself. Thomas Leboudelet and Floris Zimmermann fighting for some of that track position as they work through the Mercedes-Benz arena. And once more, liveries looking amazing on this car. I don't think you could probably put a bad livery on it, including the Arjuna face that I sometimes like to run.
Oh, absolutely not. You can't be sticking that on this. Look, the BS competition, though, I know one thing that we're probably going to take a wild guess at. It's going to be blue on both of them, isn't it? Like it was last round. We'll have to go see if Boulder's got the same colour, but that will lose them points in my book. Just going to say. It's a great.
Just waiting. I've got nothing else to say until I see what Jack Balding's car looks like.
I'm trying to spot it in the background. Oh dear. Well, either way, Leboudelet is going to be, I say pick up the slipstream. Obviously he's not, because there is no slipstream in the qualifying session. They do get just a single lap, which we've been mentioning before. And look, I'm expecting Leboudelet to be flying pretty fast around here. Also, shout out to Cody Nikolakovsky, the Australian. Wait, what? There's no Macedonian flag on the platform? What's the deal here?
We'll have to see if we can ask him about that at some point. I agree with you, by the way. Thomas Leboudelet, so much Gran Turismo World Series experience, but I've been very interested in seeing his transition onto iRacing as well. Loves the LMP3 cars out there. Not necessarily the same as what we're racing today, but goes to show the adaptability of the driver. The Frenchman heads down into turn one. He's second on the road, I think, behind Floris Zimmermann, with Latkovsky tucked in behind for the zero point racing. It's misspelled in our little guide. It took me a second to double check and make sure that I was going to say the right team name. Down to the shortcut. This is where you got to be aggressive as you hook the right, drop down actually, and compress as you then power down onto the throttle. Nice and tidy from Floris Zimmermann.
It is tidy. It is tidy. Whether it's going to be a 38-1, we'll have to wait and see. It was brilliant to see both of the Vitalities put those laps together, and Zimmermann is putting together a very tidy lap thus far. The gap remaining pretty close, or pretty similar rather, to Leboudelet behind. So I suspect they're running pretty similar laps. I'm not seeing that gap growing to a ridiculous margin. Maybe even Leboudelet's actually closed up a little bit, so might be running a slightly faster lap time here for BS competition. Into the final chicane they go. Big hit of the curve for Zimmermann.
To answer your question, Lewis, apparently Cody Nikolai Latkovsky on his Wikipedia page, North Macedonia and Australia, both nationalities listed. We'll see if that can power him to a quick time in qualifying as Zimmermann sets the benchmark for us in the third and final heat of the night. 1:38.316, which is about a tenth quicker than Thomas Laboudoulet was able to punch in, and so that's a pretty decent benchmark. Latkovsky a little bit slower, Marty a little bit slower, Jewel a little bit slower. It's a very good initial lap time that's coming at the front of the times.
But these lap times, they are actually pretty close in this session from what we're seeing coming through. Obviously, we can see, yes, it's Legadas who's the only one with the time on the tower. That will update, do not worry. But it does seem as though Zimmerman and Laboudoulet might be right the way up there in the front row, and Zimmerman taking the top one of it. There was Balding come through, who I think might have just skipped through in the first. 37.9. I think that's the fastest lap we've seen all day.
My goodness, and when you were saying, Lewis, all the times were close, you are quite right. Look how compressed, with just about 4/10 from 2nd through 9th position, and then Jack Balding comes in with a lap time that's about another 4/10 better than what Zimmerman was able to do.
Absolutely fantastic. You know, one of the top players on Gran Turismo. Obviously, you know, we can see it. We got quite a young driver, a new one to keep an eye on the scenes in Gran Turismo, but that was a pretty impressive lap time there, and a 37.9. It was 38.136, I think, for the pair of them in the Vitalities of the previous race. That's a very impressive lap time there for Balding.
So Balding and Laboudoulet first and third for BS Plus. For Floris Zimmerman, a very quick time from him for the Referox Esports crew, but his teammate a little bit further down through the running order. It means Legadas is sat in 4th with his teammate Marty for the S Motorsports pair, 4th and 6th. Cody Nikola Latkovsky then in 5th position for 0 Point Racing, with Jewel a little bit further down in the time charts for Customs GT. Rodriguez tucked in behind him. Francisco Munoz 9th. The pair of Krakowskis, which apparently this might be the first time that we've had a father-son lineup in the competition, representing Absolute Motorsport Asalith. And then Eljon, a lot of work to do to catch up to where Floris Zimmerman is going to start this race if Referox Esports want to make their way through. Lewis, does that sound correct? First time we've had the father-son pairing on Esports Racing League action?
I'm pretty sure across the entirety of ERL, I cannot remember a time. I did read that in our little document that you know, it's the first time we've had it, at least in Gran Turismo. I'm pretty sure it's the first time that we've had it in ERL in its entirety. It's one of the very few times it appears in sim racing. I love seeing it. You know, obviously, you know, family support and stuff. It's always great to see father-son combos.
See how they get on as one of our BS Plus cars goes nowhere as Heat 3 gets underway. Jack Balding will lead us down to turn 1. It means Thomas Laboudoulet is parked on the starting grid. Floris Zimmerman around the outside, aggression early doors. Latkovsky around the outside for 3rd position as well as they funnel down now into the Mercedes-Benz arena. Aggression early doors. Where has Laboudoulet, though, been able to drop himself into the mix? Because if he goes nowhere, that is BS Plus competition on the back foot as we unwind our steering through the Mercedes-Benz arena. Jewel in the mid part of the action. Rodriguez behind, Marty in front. Latkovsky trying to now get the run on Legadas. The teammates block the road down into the shortcut.
I mean, look, technically speaking, there's still a chance for BS competition to progress here with 13 points. But, I mean, they've got to get a little bit lucky with where other teams end up putting themselves. It's a disaster at the moment for BS competition. Questions as to why Laboudoulet's been unable to get going from the grid. I believe he might be out of the race, but I'm not sure. I've not seen that car moving just yet. We've got some great fights happening here between the Spaniards, Rodriguez and Munoz. We've got Jules not too far ahead. Marty as well. Cody Nikola Latkovsky for 0 Point on the left-hand side of the screen. Jules should go down the inside, up towards the chicane. Marty will defend that inside line. Yes, Motorsport's in solid position here. Latkovsky's going to go around the outside and we'll have to skip over at the chicane. And here comes Munoz to make it 3 wide.
I don't think there are many permutations where Jack Balding winning still allows BS Plus competition to go through, and so all of these drivers behind have got to realize that there's a spot in the semi-finals up for grabs as lap 1 of Heat 3 comes to an end. Back down to turn 1. Rodriguez going to have to go defensive. 0 Point Racing in a good position right now. They would advance. You'd expect Rodriguez has to cover from the move around the outside. Dropping down, Rodriguez is able to slam the door shut, but again, no traction control. These cars are running to effectively GT4 BOP, plenty of power, but it's all traction control through the right foot.
Yeah, my base maths at the moment, maths with an F, will go the way, I believe, of Referox, as well as 0 Point, and of course, yes, Motorsport. Those are the three that I think that I've got.
I agree with you, Lewis. And it's pretty simple right now as well. I don't think they're, with how the field is kind of teammates kind of together in the mid-pack, it's one of these races where they could all go side by side, but effectively they're likely to play the team game right now and try to protect their car either in front or behind them.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, when you're running with your teammate directly behind, for the two Yes Motorsports cars in third and fourth, there is actually zero reason for them to go on the attack right now. There is absolutely nothing, and that's one of the ones you mentioned it before in the previous race, where it comes down to your team manager to take control here and kind of say whether you go on the attack or not. Similar for 0 Point, although not quite the same, because for Rodriguez there's the pressure of Joule and Munoz behind, to kind of not allow the Customs GT cars back into the fight a little bit here. But for Cody Nikolakowski, I'd say there's no real requirement to try and force the move on Marty right now. And the reason I say that is because when you force a move, you bring into you bring into question race control. And if you get that wrong and race control jump in and then penalise you, suddenly your current 5th and 6th and current pathway into the semi-finals and not having to go through the second chance race, suddenly that's brought into question. So you've got to weigh up all those things all of the time.
Word, by the way, on Thomas Laboudele is the engine actually didn't start as the race got underway. Really? So that's, I mean, it happens in the real world. Good avoiding action from everyone to scamper past. He is running out there, Lewis. And so what that does mean, we can't totally discount BS Plus competition now if something goes wrong. I think specifically for the Referox Esports team here, if Eljon, drops down behind the Absolute Motorsports cars, that would be enough for BS to slip through.
What else would be enough for BS to slip through is if the two Krakowskis in 10th and 11th, if somehow through the race, if Laboudele is able to get back going and is able to somehow catch them and pass both of them and end up finishing the race in 10th position, or if they spin or anything like that, if he ends up finishing in 10th position, it would be 1st and 10th for BS competition. That's 11 points. Lakowski and Rodriguez, 5th and 6th. Guess what? It's 11 points.
I have to retract what I said, Lewis. Update: he is withdrawn from the race now, so sat in pit lane.
I will withdraw my statement.
Let's just get the what's the Men in Black vanishing memory thingy?
the memory thing. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah,
I'm picking up what you put down.
Exactly. Well, you're not, because I've just used it on everybody, right? So there you go. 3 laps left to go in heat number 3. We are, like I said, in a different sort of race to what we've seen in heat 1 and heat 2, but this Nissan Silvia Spec R Aero S15 touring car, to give it its full government name on Gran Turismo 7. Puts out the 301 horsepower.
That's like me going, yeah, I drive a Mazda 6 Sky Active 2.2 litre diesel, whatever rubbish you want to throw in with all the other titles on it.
That's why the kids call it the government name, apparently.
That's good.
But again, I gotta say, it looks wonderful. There's not a bad livery that we've seen today, and puts on a great race, and it's different. That's the other thing, right? Compared to what a lot of these GT specialists will be racing, a lot of the GT3S cars, it's a little bit more demanding, a little less reliant on aero, and requires the mechanical grip instead.
Yeah, obviously that big rear wing, it's not there for show, but it's kind of there for show. It's obviously, like I say, these cars aren't ridiculously aero dependent. You say it's a little bit closer to a, in that GT4, that's where it's kind of aiming for pace-wise, speed-wise. The aero almost looks GT3-esque, but the pace and such is definitely not. It definitely doesn't have that level of downforce even with a GT3 car, but it kind of looks the part a little bit. If you imagine if there was if GT3 existed more than 20 years ago, GT3 is 20 years old, did you know that? If GT3 existed more than 20 years ago, this is what it would look like, I think.
You know how crazy it is that we have a historic GT3 series now?
Yeah, I think it's every now and then I get to commentate on a champion called GT Cup here in the UK, and every now and then they throw out some old GT3s in that. It's so good to see.
I am so looking forward to the fact that the BMW Z4 is racing. We got hopefully 2 of them in the Nürburgring 24, and the reason why I say hopefully 2 is because they haven't had a great success record in running NLS races so far this year. But I know one of our friends, Ewan O'Leary, he's got a particular fondness for that BMW.
So does Darren McCormack. He owns a Z4. So, you know, there's obviously a lot of love going around for the Z4. I still think it looks terrible, but I do not actually. I don't like the GT spec of it. I do actually like the road car, but I've never liked. I think it's because the rear wing looks so disproportionate on it. You remember the Mustang that was in Supercars?
Yes.
Like that. Did not vibe with that car.
It's the opposite of how I feel about the M4 GT3, to be fair. I like the race car. I don't like the road car.
I completely agree. Yeah.
I especially like the BMW M3 Touring. You can tell this is a race where these drivers haven't really put too much on the line when we have really gone off topic during an Esports Racing League encounter. BS Plus competition run first and last. Thomas Laboudoulet, an issue at the start means that he did not even see turn 1. Jack Balding has led from the drop of the green flag to expecting it to be the drop of the checkered flag at the end of this one. Floris Zimmermann is looking in the rearview mirrors, but there's no pressure really for Legatus or Marty to make any moves for Yes Motorsports, because they, 0 Point Racing, and Referox Esports are all on their way to the semi-finals.
Definitely at this point, yeah, that's what we're expecting. That's what we're expecting. The lack of fighting to be coming in. That's why we've been yapping, as the cool kids would say. We are becoming, you know. I was saying that on GT3s, by the way. There'll be a lot of people that watch this broadcast. A lot of commentators we have in sim racing. You know, that's actually not. They've not been in motorsport and sim racing since before GT3s existed. Anyway, well, let's see Balding across the line. It's been a brilliant performance, isn't it?
The problem is now, he's got to do some work, I would expect, in the second chance race. A very weird technical issue for Thomas Laboudoulet means that BS Plus competition, 3rd on Live for Speed, a great start to their Esports Racing League season. Despite the win on track in Heat 3, Jack Balding has not got his team directly into the semi-finals. Floris Zimmermann has, though, as he crosses the line with Legatus in close pursuit. Gotta say, calm Heat number 3, Lewis, but some teams very glad to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some big names that will be going through into the second chance race. Obviously, most notably being from this BS competition, TC Esports, of course, in the previous race. Some big names indeed that will be having to duke it out to try and come out on top. We've got 9 cars, 9 teams in our semi-finals, but we'll still have to find out those final 3. And look, it's going to be a tough race. I think we've got our favourites for it, and especially if Balding can repeat that performance, BS competition are a cert to go through.
Well, quick look at our results, quick chat with our winner, and a quick look at some highlights, and we'll be second chance race ready. Jack Balding, a stellar drive at the front of the field. I said the gap in Heat 1 may not be beaten. Well, 2 seconds, make it 3.4 seconds. And that, I think, will be the largest of the gaps that we'll see in these bigger races. Second chance race maybe aside. Floris Zimmermann for Referox Esports is second. Legatus and Marty pair up for Yes Motorsports to move forward. Latkovsky and Rodriguez, great effort for 0 Point Racing as well. Just in front of Jewel and Munoz, who will just miss out. Margins quite close for Customs GT. Eljon, after starting at the back, moves forward a couple of spots in front of the Krakowskis for Absolute Motorsport. Aslith, while, of course, Thomas Laboudoulet, a DNS effectively after the technical issue, sees him dropped before he even gets to punch the throttle down to turn number 1, Lewis. Are there any surprises that I think we are now hoping that will be rectified in many ways in the second chance race? BS Plus competition, of course, the most recent of those.
Yeah, I mean, look, BS competition and TC Sports would be the 2 that would be going into the second chance race, expecting to move through. One thing I would say there, obviously, if BS Competition can sort the issues that they had there, then I think they are a pretty firm favourite to be actually going through all the way into the final. If Laboutelet is able to figure out what actually went wrong there and is able to rectify it, I'm sure he will be able to, as well experienced with the platform. Thing is, from that, the reason why I say that is so far from that race, Balding set the fastest time in qualifying so far, the first 37 that we've had in qualifying, and also across the 3 races so far has set the fastest lap of the evening. The first driver to go to the 38 zeros during the race. We had 38 ones from both the Vitalities. I think it was a 38.2 in Heat 1 was the fastest lap. So clearly has got that pace in the car. What I'm looking at on the times, though, Arjuna, we are going to have a very close semi-final and final combination here.
And I think that's part of what makes this competition so exciting, right? That even when we go to these sort of platforms where some are expected to have an advantage, the advantage gets equalized by the format of finding out the track so shortly before. What an interesting third race, though, in terms of the strategy. I think that's really what we saw. Teams trying to work together. Thomas Laboutelet stranded on the start line meant Jack Balding stranded at the front of the field for BS Plus competition. Floris Zimmerman for RaceRoom Esports would try and attack down to turn number 1. Behind, Latkovsky centered around the outside, then got stuck behind the wall of Yes Motorsports. Legatus and Marty working together well to finish 3rd and 4th. Meanwhile, Rodriguez picks his way through after starting on the tail end of the top 10. Slots in directly behind his teammate to make 0 Point Racing finish this race 5th and 6th position. A very good effort for the team to move straight into the semi-final. Latkovsky having a couple of cracks as well at moving his way forward, as did Legatus towards the closing stages, really closing on to the back of Floris Zimmerman, but all as the BS Plus competition car at the front of the field broke away to a 3.5 second gap. Jack Balding punching in the fastest qualifying time we've seen, and then some of the fastest race lap times that we've seen as well, converting all that pace to a victory, but now's got some work to do in the second chance race. Well, Lewis, here's a look at the points. No surprise, I think, there. Yes Motorsports, RaceRoom Esports, and 0 Point Racing moving forward.
Yeah, for BS competition, the victory, but none of the prize. And so we'll join Customs GT and Absolute Motorsport Asolith, along with the likes of TC Esports and such, in the second chance race. And we'll have to fight it out over just 3 spots. But of course, in that one, counter how we've got in the races that we've had so far, Arjuna, they only have the single driver out in action in the second chance race. None of this 2-driver, none of this teamwork, none of this nothing. You have to do it for your team. 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, those go through. As simple as it gets.
I haven't heard much from Race Control today either, in a good way. Haven't had to make their presence known in terms of impacting the results of who moves forward. Now, I'm not expecting that to maybe be the case here, because what's going to happen, Lewis, is obviously 3 teams are going to move directly forward to fill the 12 teams in the semi-finals. Remember, 9 teams advance, 3 from each of the heats already. It means the rest of the teams will finish the night off, and the order in which they finish this race determines the championship points they'll take into the next round of the season.
Exactly, and with it being such a short season here, you've really got to be scoring. We've said about scoring points consistently. You've got to be scoring points consistently. You really, really, really have to. If you aren't at a bare minimum getting into the semi-finals normally, which obviously in this case it's 12 teams, so realistically, I think that if you aren't, if you aren't in the top 6 this evening, I'll quite happily say that I think that if you're not in the top 6 this evening, you're probably not going to be in the top 4 at the end of the season, right? And that sounds brutal because there's so few rounds, and some of the teams that were going well in the previous round, we're expecting to go well again. Your likes of your viscerals and so much that I don't necessarily see it, if you know what I mean. I think if you're not in that top 6. It's toast.
I think I don't disagree with you, but we could see some disasters. Obviously, we do have a slightly smaller field than we did last season, which I think also makes it less of a detriment sometimes. Depending on when you are eliminated, it becomes less of a detriment on your season, of course. I'm just looking at the list, by the way, of drivers here, Lewis. Obviously, Jack Balding for BS Plus competition, he is the favorite in the second chance race. No question about that. But as we take a look at these teams, for TC Esports, it will be Ariagada. For Team Nitro, it will be Tobias Gronevold. Are those maybe the 3 quickest drivers that we're looking at now?
I mean, Gronevold had some actually really good speed, right? He was able to keep both TC Esports cars behind in Heat 2, and was running the same pace as them. Was able to, when the gap was pulled out, was actually able to hold that gap. So I'd kind of say, obviously, it's going to come down to qualifying. Whilst I don't think you have to be first, second, and third, I think you've got to be somewhere on the front 2 or 3 rows. If you don't qualify well in this, you're toast. I think it's going to be, first couple of rows is going to be really, really important here. And avoiding the drama at turn 1, because if there is a race where there is guaranteed drama at T1, surely it's this one.
Well, you say that, but in some ways, slightly fewer cars on track, everyone knowing the stakes. Is everyone going to be maybe a bit more tentative down to turn 1 just because of everything that's going on? You never know, Lewis. They might all be aware that it's so much easier to tangle up, and well, we'll wait and see.
Look, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking either I'm going to be in 3rd position by the exit of turn 1 and hanging on to it, or I'm out for the evening. So either way, it's full send, baby. You know, that's what will be going through my mind down to the opening corner. You've kind of got to get a little bit sendy-wendy. Sorry, race control, by the way. I'm not condoning any reckless driving or anything. But you know,
I don't know the sendy-wendy stuff. Surely we save that for the only race page.
No comment. No comment.
That was a good one. I'm proud of myself for that one.
That was good. That was very good. But you know, if you don't understand what R2D means, don't worry about it. Don't ask it. Don't Google it. Don't do nothing. It's fine. Obviously, after this, we're halfway through the night after this race, because we'll have completed the second chance race, meaning there's only 3 races left to go, with just the single final to deal with. I think this is the most. Like I said, the most likely, because obviously it can happen at any point. But there are 2 teams in this where I'm like, yeah, they can get into the final. TC Esports and BS Competition. Now, it's kind of like, obviously we're sat here talking about the 3 that can go through. The fact that there's 2 teams in this that we actually wouldn't be shocked if they went all the way, I think is crazy.
Exactly. And again, we're mixing and matching formats, so sometimes it's hard to really make comparisons and think back to previous years about putting yourself in this position. But I wonder, with the format this season, with, you know, teams being in just one race, slightly different, you know, spread across of 3 different heats, I wonder if they prefer having more chaos and having more drivers in the field, because there's more opportunities to pick your way forward. That 3rd heat, Lewis, after the start, it was pretty stagnant, right? It didn't really have much progression compared to heat number 2 in particular. So maybe we've kind of reduced the permutations of where the action can end up being.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think what we're looking at here is going to be critical for the evening, i.e. this qualifying session right now. You can see where they are on circuit. You can see where they're navigating. You can see they want to keep an eye on each other, and Balding will be, it looks like, the first driver to come round. Do you reckon he can be able to set that 37.9 again? Do you think that's going to be critical?
We'll find out, but you know, that had the hallmarks of one of those laps where you're very close to the optimal, right? It's not often that you'll hook them up at this level and get close to a theoretical best, but if Jack Balding's performing at the level which he seems to be, then might just be operating on a different plane to the rest of the field. Looks very locked in as through the final corner. Just look at how the car on the curb, when it comes off, there's a real hop, and so that's something you've got to consider when you turn in to that final corner in actual speed conditions. Not such an issue when you're going on an out lap and going to bank off the corner, run your speed down to turn 1, get the lap underway.
See what it's going to be like in that opening corner. Dropping down the gears, flicking it over that curb on the right-hand side. They are able to really attack the curbs in this car. We see it a lot in the final chicane. And once again, holding that really tight line, getting onto the power beautifully. Boulding was the fastest driver in all of the heats. Picks it up onto that curb. Doesn't run it as far over to the left-hand side from what I was seeing from the Vitalities. Yes, this is allegedly legal, running all the way through the exit there. Trust me, if you were telling the real drivers to do that in real life, they'd bite your hand off at the idea, although I don't think the suspension suppliers would potentially be on the same boat as them. Onto the brakes, into the left hand before we head out onto the back stretch. Again, looks very smooth. Every apex perfectly hit. No understeer, no oversteer, just perfect driving at the moment from Jack Boulding.
Tell you what, Lewis, suspension suppliers could make an absolute wallet load off of sim racers, right? If they just let them do all the things and then charge them like they would in the real world. Oh, just watch here, the onboard. I mean, bang. That second one, you heard it as well. It's just such a colossal amount of force sent through the car. And then through the final corner, there's a little bit of understeer. Moment of hesitation from the front end, but it turns in eventually, puts the power down. And can Jack Boulding set another sub 139? Yes, he can.
38.2 there for Boulding. That is actually a little bit slower than he was in the previous session by about 3/10. It's Arriagada, 38.4. So a little bit behind. Joel goes for 38.6 and up into third position for the Customs GT. Let's see what Krakowski can do. Towards the line, not looking particularly quick, out a little bit wide there through the final corner, but it is going to be at least the top two first and second as we were expecting coming into this race, Arjuna.
Yeah, I'd written it down wrong, so I thought he'd gone even quicker, and I was like, where was the 7/10 or something in that lap? But yeah, still very good. Maybe not hooked up as much as that previous attempt, but still clear of the field.
So it is going to be BS Competition and TC Esports on the front row. Customs GT and Jewel will be starting in third position, just ahead of the Owls car of Frieger. Then it's Schmiel, then it's Grunewald, Battaglia, and Krakowski. The 8-car field. Drama expected at turn one. Look, and this is what I say, if you're not on those front couple of rows, I know you've been saying that we're expecting this to maybe be a little bit calmer at that opening corner. If I'm Schmiel, if I'm Grunewald, I'm going full send.
I'm a bit further back, Lewis, and I think his pace warrants, so yeah, we'll see. Can't afford to get stuck too far back at the end of the day. I think the third position is the one that's going to be the most in question. First and second maybe will cycle away to the front of the field.
It's Jack Boulding from pole position. It's Arriagada alongside. Just 3 teams progressed through from the second chance into the semi-finals. What's the start going to be like for those top 2? We've been expecting them to have flown through in the heats, but they found their way into this point of the competition. We are underway here for the second chance race. Obviously a good start from Boulding. It's not so good from Jewel, though, on the second row of the grid for Customs GT. Owls are straight down the inside for Frieger. Arriagada's not going for a move down to the opening corner, but still taps the rear end of the BS Competition car. Boulding's going to go out wide. He's going to have to retain the lead here, but that was a bit aggressive into the opening corner from Arriagada. Boulding will hang on to the race lead, but there could be a switch here for second.
Remember Jewel for Customs GT? That was a team that had a chance, but just never really had an opportunity in Heat 3 to make moves. And so now, in a transfer spot, got to be careful, because the last thing you want to do, go for second and now lose third. As they run down to the shortcut, be careful, because here comes that bright blue to the outside. Single file for the top 3 eventually. Arriagada being able to hold on to second.
I mean, look, that was so aggressive in the opening corner. I think Arriagada maybe just missed his braking point, something of that ilk. But, I mean, a potentially costly mistake that I think has realistically gotten away with it. Wonder what Coque Lopez was like behind the scenes. Of course, the teammate of Arriagada, watching that happen in the opening corner, probably through his fingers, as we can see some of the teammates watching on and driving there on the controller. I mean, with a wheel in front of you, odd to see you driving with a controller, even though with a wheel in front of you. But obviously, not all wheels are as compatible with the platform as and with a PlayStation as always. So, as close to your normal driving position as normal, I guess.
Well, I know some of our competitors last year actually rented PlayStations and just ran on a controller instead of, doing anything else. So sometimes you make good with what you've got, and there's no question that controllers can be as quick as wheels. Just requires a bit more dexterity on the fingers to manipulate the inputs and understand how to work the physics. A tag as Chamil for Thomas Eng Sim Racing lunges around the outside down at turn number 1. Hasn't quite worked out in his fight with Yal's number 11, slithering and sliding as he tries to put that power down. The problem is these two are costing themselves time and allowing the front 3 to break away. And I said the third and final position might be in question, Lewis. These two are making sure it's not.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're literally throwing it into the hands of Customs GT for TC Esports and for BS Competition as being those 3 cars to transfer here. We've always said this before. We've said this in all of the competition that we've had before here in the VCO ERL. You have to understand what you're fighting for, when you're fighting, and how hard to fight for it. And that seemed a little bit short-sighted to be battling that hard for those positions, allowing the top 3 to run away. There's been a slowdown for Tobias Gronewold, who will come straight in to serve that one, and he'll drop back behind Battaglia.
Lewis, and now he might be able to salvage a couple of points here, but Team Nitro, one of the final 4 in last year's, or in the, I should say, last season of the Esports Racing League.
Yeah.
They were 11th in the first round of the championship. They are going to be outside of the top 10 heading into the back half of the season.
I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but it's at the point now for Team Nitro where it's almost completely out of their hands. Even if they are victorious on iRacing, even if they are victorious on RaceRoom, 2 things which we wouldn't necessarily classify as the most likely things to happen. Yes, them getting right the way up there, fair enough. But winning both of those competitions, even that would not be a guarantee to be one of the top 4 teams. That is, through the opening couple of rounds, it's been the struggle. They have effectively said to everyone else, it now requires your mistake for us to move through, and I don't see those mistakes really coming over the next couple of rounds to allow them to gain that much progress. So I think for Team Nitro, like you say, one of our finalists of last season, I don't think they are going to be moving through into the final this time by.
I think it's almost a guarantee that they don't win on iRacing, unfortunately, just because of the nature of the platform and the way it works. They're quick drivers, but they're not specialists there. And I think that being in a TCR car actually is more in favor of the iRacing specialists and understanding how to manage the temperature of the front tires. RaceRoom, they could be contenders on, though. I think that's where they'll maybe try and end the season on a high. But again, goes back to the story of R8G and Kawanda last year, right? The bad start to the season. These aren't long seasons, Lewis, in which you get a chance to fight your way back into the top 4, and so I do feel for them. I feel for Tobias Gronewold and the rest of the team.
But that is what it is. That is the nature of this competition. It's not a competition where you can make mistakes and have issues left, right, and centre and still work your way through. To progress through into any part of this competition, whether it is from the second chance race here, effectively the final positions that we're seeing sorted, and moving through into the semi-finals, you've still got to be one of the best to do it. And I think one of the more unfortunate things here for the likes of Tobias Gronewold, who, Team Nitro might have been sat there thinking, oh, we'll probably be in the second chance race, right? But they probably wouldn't have been sat there thinking, oh yeah, we'll be in the second chance race with the driver who set the fastest lap so far today, with TC Esports who qualified, locked out the second row of the grid in their respective heat. They wouldn't be sat there thinking, yeah, these are the teams we'd be expecting to be in this part of the competition with. But that's the nature of this style of knockout competition. You just get thrown into any part of this competition with the very best.
And jumping between platforms, you need to be adaptable. The only thing that, sometimes I wonder, Lewis, is could we make the pick ban phase happen maybe just an hour before the event? Because, on a real race weekend, you and I have commentated on our fair share now in the last handful of years. A lot of drivers are lucky to get a good hour of practice. Let's be real. Once you combine 2 30-minute free practice sessions, time to go in and out of pit lane, do some setup changes here and there, really don't get that much time on a race weekend. So I almost wonder, could we make this a question of limiting practice even further, and at which point the adaptability, those that are more adaptable surely will rise to the top even further.
You know my opinion on that, Arjuna. We've spoken about it ad nauseum. I think this for, honestly, pretty much all esports competition. The more you can do to reduce practice, the better the racing and the event will be. And some drivers won't like to hear that, but you all kind of know it's true. The less practice you have, the more mistakes you get. You've obviously commentated on, as well, on some of the highest level of esports, where they put in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of laps into it, and they go into the race and they do not make a mistake, and sometimes it's single file and boring because no one does anything, because they're all doing exactly the same thing. There is no opportunity for them to do so. Not naming names on series, but I think, Arjuna, you know what I'm talking about. Here, obviously, we've reduced the practice down to effectively just the day. And yes, they can practice beforehand because they've got the list of circuits. But then there is the pick ban phase, where the top 5 teams will ban the track they don't want to race at and pick the track they do want to race at. And then whichever track has the most votes will be the one we race at. Bingo. That's why we're racing here. I think you're absolutely right. That can be done genuinely an hour beforehand. This is not a hit, by the way, anyone at VCO. Florian works so hard, and obviously this I actually really rate this pick ban phase of these broadcasts, but I would love to see it just that hour before, so then practice really matters.
And again, I think this is the next evolution, right? So the previous format was that we do the public vote, and in that format maybe it made sense to do the one day, right? Because everyone already was going to see the trend on social media of which way it was going to go. If you were maybe at work in the 2 hours before the vote ended, you might have an advantage. So there was maybe some ways that particular format warranted this 1 day period. Maybe this new pick ban format, which Florian has, taken inspiration from other esports, which, like I said, like you said, I really think it's so interesting and a cool idea. Maybe that's the next evolution. Maybe in the next season we'll have the track only announced the hour before. So much to continue tinkering away on. I think that's what's so exciting about the Esports Racing League, as we continue to add new platforms. We was so cool adding Gran Turismo for the first time last year, and now we're back with the great team at IGTL, and so far I've been loving the action we've seen today.
I think we're going to be getting some more great action, and we are going to be seeing that action with this driver here, with Jack Balding, fastest driver of the day so far, into the second chance race after a technical issue, a very rare bug for Le Boutelet. But for BS competition, it is going to be progression for them. TC Esports will join. Customs GT, we're feeling a little bit of pressure from Owls, but it will be Customs GT as well. Jack Balding through the final corner to win and dominate the second chance race and drag his way through into the semi-finals for BS competition.
Spectacular stuff. Although he knows job's not done, so nary a reaction. Semi-finals to come shortly.
Obviously, in the semi-finals, we'll be split across 2 semi-finals. So we'll see the 12 teams separate 6 apiece. Top 2 from each of those will be progressing their way through. And like I say, for those top 2 teams there in the second chance race, no joke, they could be 2 teams we'll see as part of the quartet that will make up the final. They are definitely fast enough.
Yeah, I think now we really get into the business end of things, right, Lewis? There's no question about that. The first phase of this competition was all about I think, setting the benchmark of performance, and now we know where everyone roughly is. You get one final chance to perform in the semi-finals or go home and watch as we get ready for iRacing in a couple of weeks' time.
Which will be a lot of fun, but of course the fun is still to come this evening. Jack Balding will take victory here in the second chance race, 2.5 seconds clear of Arriagada. Jewel will round out the top 3, and the 3 cars and teams that will progress their way through into the semi-finals for BS competition, for TC Esports, and for Customs GT. Owls, they'll miss out by less than a second, with Frieja finishing in 4th position. Bell will finish in 5th, with Battaglia, Gronevold and Krakowski rounding out the run of the father-son duo in the Absolute Motorsport Asalith team. Once again, very quick lap time there for Jack Boulding, a 138.117. That still would have been, by the way, the fastest lap time in the race this evening. It is still faster than what Vitality were running in their 1-2 back in the heats.
It's not bad, was it? The pace that he's shown us today. Now just needs to hope his teammate avoids the repeat of the technical gremlins that kept him from performing in his respective heat race. 2 semi-finals, 6 teams apiece though, Lewis, with the top 2 advancing directly into the finals. Once more, qualifying is going to be crucial, and this format where it's one lap, but the drivers can kind of still see themselves. It's kind of like a mix between the regular Esports Racing League format, which we ran on iRacing and many other platforms for many years, and kind of what we've seen come in from Rennsport with the dynamic hyperpole, shootout sessions. And it's interesting because you still have the element of fighting for some track position out there, because there is still distractions, right? You're not separated from each other physically, but you still have the draft being turned off, which is a great thing. There's no games that can be played there, no dirty air to impact you either, but you still got to deal with, oh, that car's right in front of me and he missed his braking zone. Oh wait, I've just missed my braking zone as well.
It's one of the hardest things about qualifying with other cars in the circuit, regardless of slipstream and dirty air and this, that, and the other. It's the distraction of another car there. It is the most frustrating thing. I think that's kind of why in the Heat 2 qualifying session, Coque Lopez was so late to set his time. I don't know what kind of time constraints they're running to at the session, but the session seems to end once everyone's set a lap time because they all have one. I would want to be the last car. Or I'd just be like, do you know what? You boys get on with it. I'll be the final car in all of this, and you lot can all continue. Don't worry about it.
Too right. Absolutely.
Well, we'll have highlights in just a second of the second chance race where Jack Boulding was able to take victory. Highlights from the second chance race. It was Jack Boulding from pole position for BS Competition, Arriagada alongside for TC Esports, but the fight was all that behind. The 2 Spaniards of Frida and Jewel going side by side down into the opening corner. Arriagada tapped the rear end of Boulding in the opening turn, actually allowing the Customs GT car of Jewel to try and steal away second position. Wasn't able to do so. And then the fighting was for 4th. Schmiel and Frida going side by side for 4th and 5th position, almost effectively stopping their chances of becoming one of the top 3 teams to progress through into the semi-finals. Schmiel was able to keep the likes behind. Gronewold will get a slowdown penalty of 1 second and will drop back to 7th with Battaglia working his way through. Gronewold still wasn't able to successfully complete that 1 second penalty and would have to return his way into the slowdown zone. Some big slides. The Owls car was trying to catch up with Customs GT, and Frida was trying to close down on Jewel, but Boulding was dominant at the front to take BS Competition into the semi-finals. Brilliant drive. It really was brilliant from BS Competition there.
And I've done it again. Got to make sure I turn my... I couldn't interrupt you over those highlights, Lewis. They were just too enthralling. He's done it again, and now again just has to try and do it once more. And I think if Jack Boulding can go 3 poles in a row, it's an ominous sign for the rest of the field, because he's not setting it against bad competition by any means. He's got a quick teammate, and as much as Vitality dominated their respective heat, Lewis, BS Competition could have done the same. They just never had the chance to show us that. Could those be 2 of the favorites in the finals tonight? I'd put forward to you that they could be the strongest in terms of lineups at the very least.
It's one of those ones where you're looking at it and we're all talking of Vitality this, Vitality that coming into the night. BS Competition, they've obviously got 2 very good drivers in Le Bouteille and Boulding. The only problem that they will have at the moment, and the only hiccup, although I'm sure it's not one that's majorly thought about at the moment, because I'm sure Le Bouteille's done enough practice coming into this and is obviously well experienced with the platform, is that this evening has done exactly 0 laps of racing, despite there having been 4 races, and of course for his teammate he's done 2. Obviously wasn't able to do a single lap of the heats, and it was his teammate that took them through the second chance race. So he is maybe a little bit rusty going into the semi-finals. The only thing you could really throw at them is maybe a question mark as to whether they move through into the final or not, but I do think they'll be fine.
I mean, it is a valid point, though, right? He hasn't had the opportunity to go out there and duke it out necessarily and get a sense for the rest of his competitors. But that's why the semi-final is going to be important for him, right? To get some good reps under his belt effectively and get any kinks worked out of his system. Because once we get into the finals, it's just one race, right? There's no chance to make a mistake and be bailed out by a teammate. No, any penalty points you get are going to be pretty final. And qualifying poorly and finishing down the order is going to be effectively a death sentence to your chance of winning tonight's event, which I think everyone who gets to that final...
Yeah, absolutely. The final, I think, is going to be pretty crazy. I like the fact that we're getting 4 teams in it. Obviously, for me in this format, I think 4 really kind of is going to be our limit of how many teams we want in the final. Outside of that, it just becomes a pretty normal race, right, with teammates, and we're then getting away from where we are in the era. I love the fact that we've got 4 here for Gran Turismo, where obviously we've only got 2 drivers of the team. Completely makes sense. I really enjoyed that last round we had, of course, 3 in it, which is what we'll have when we go to iRacing and RaceRoom as well. I actually quite like it as a format change up. I love the knockout head-to-heads, from the finals what we've had in the previous, where you win the race, you go 1-0 up, and then it comes down to that second race. But sometimes it's nice to spice it up a little bit.
Yeah, I think we have shifted away from that sort of thing as in the finals, which is it's a definite change of mindset, right? From going from the one-on-ones to what we've seen even in Live for Speed, which was quite an interesting dynamic in the finals, I've got to admit. It does make me also wonder, do we maybe save the one-on-one format only for Final 4, Esports Racing League, and the final round of the competition? The best 2 teams in the world, across of all the platforms, do we save the one-on-one just for that? Maybe that's the future of our format. But again, it goes back to what we were saying before, right? The fact that this is a format that we'll continue to tinker, we'll continue to evolve on, and we'll only continue to improve with. That's for sure, Lewis, as we get set for semi-final action.
Look, it's a good thing with a format like this. It's not like you're tuning into your real-world competition where the format kind of stays relatively stagnant, right? It doesn't change. It's always the same. You turn it on Sunday. The race is going to be around about 90 minutes. They're going to race around. They're going to do a pit stop here, and it's all blah 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 blah. It's all the same thing pretty much every week. It's just different track, right? This is something that we can change season on season, not even just year on year. And effectively for this, it changes event on event as well. And I rate it. I like that sometimes we have to think outside the box a little bit. But either way, here we are in qualifying for the first of our semi-finals. And looking at the teams in this, I think this might be slightly easier than the other. Although I will say the 2 teams that I'm expecting to go through from this, I'm going to say it's 92 and TC.
Well, 92 I think is definitely my favourites, especially with how Heat 1 went. Everyone else in this heat, though, has shown some decent speed. Samantha Tan Racing maybe not the quickest outright, but they were consistent at least to stay out of trouble and finish, 4th and 5th, and well out of the way of those that had issues, which included the pair of TC drivers, so they'll be hoping to avoid the Turn 1 drama, but I think you're right. They're likely to be amongst the favourite. Rosenberger is really the question mark for Visceral, because we saw Sammy Joe Abinakul able to fight amongst the contenders at the front. On the other hand, his teammate started inside of the top 5, but was fighting at the tail end of heat number 1. So a couple of the storylines of our teams as Magatis winds his way through the Mercedes-Benz arena. Very nicely done so far as well to keep that car smooth, not lighting up the rear end. Steps off the track, but allowed to do so by our team at Race Control. Yes, Motorsport's Nissan dives down through the shortcut.
I do like the little loop there, the inner loop, as they fire it through back onto the rear end of the Grand Prix stretch through this left and right hander onto that back straight, where obviously there's that chicane. Typically is a good overtaking opportunity. I will say today we've seen exactly 0 solid moves into it. It's T1 that's really playing its part this afternoon, hitting the curb at Ad Van Bogen, not normally where we see cars clobber that curb, but these ones onto the brakes, dropping the gears, slam again, absolutely railed through those curves.
And somewhere our suspension consultant grinning and seeing the dollar signs as they light up in his eyes. Out of the final corner, there's lots of cloud cover, but our conditions relatively constant. So, only one driver sub 138, but Legadas punches in a good benchmark. Rest of the field to the line. Marty a couple of tenths off. His teammate, Rosenberger, is slightly slower as well. Where's the fast contenders? Koke Lopez, 38.391. That drops him into second. Kowski, 38.6 means fifth on the board for him. The Samantha Tan Racing pair trending toward the tail end of the field.
Yeah, not looking so good for them. We're not getting that front row lockout like we've had before. Visceral are up there. There goes the 92. Estevez goes to a 38.0, second fastest lap of the day for 92. What's Moreno going to do?
It'll be the last one. His left hand off the wheel. I don't know if that was good or bad, but there was a reaction. There's no doubt about that. Can it be a 1-2 for 92 Esports? The winners in heat number 1. A smile building on the face as he crosses the line, and he's half a tenth of a second off his teammate, but it's a 1-2 for 92 Esports.
Instantly stands up, straight. It's like, right, that's like that bite. Like, oh, it's straight up and out. Clearly busting for the loo. But I've got to say, 92 Esports are looking really, really strong. San Moreno and Mateo Estevez once again flying the flag for 92 Esports.
That's a very impressive effort. Strong field in this first semi-final of the night, but the team founded back in 2020, continuing to show their marks. Behind them, Legadas and Marty, third and sixth, split the TC Esports duo in between them. So keep an eye out for that fight. That could be the fight for the second team to move forward, while Visceral, Joe Abinakal and Rosenberger slot into 7th and 8th positions, while Latkovsky, Rodriguez 9th and 10th for 0 Point Racing, and Samantha Tan, Moretto and Cross 10th and 12th. Some work to do from the tail end of the grid as we get set for the first of our semi-finals. Maybe the second of our semi-finals might have some of the stronger contenders in terms of the overall competition, but I think they are pretty closely matched, Lewis, in terms of overall speed.
Yeah, it's kind of like, as we've got through this evening, a fairly clearer picture as to who the favourites are for moving through has kind of started to show itself. Obviously, in the next semi-final, we'd be looking at it, expecting it, obviously from a distance, to be BS Competition and Vitality. In this one, 92 Esports, that second team, or the fourth team really, in entirety. Your Viscerals, TC Esports, kind of stuck between them a little bit.
First of our semi-finals, just 6 laps on the board. 2 teams to move forward, 4 to go home. Our front row, a relatively sluggish start from our pole sitter Mateo Estevez. His teammate Moreno is going to be alongside as we jump onto the brakes down the hill. Behind them, defensive from one of the TC Esports car, that was Arriagada, bullies his way in front of Legadas, who's dropped his way down to 9th position after starting in 3rd. That was a physical run down out of turn 1 and now up through the Mercedes-Benz arena. Contact's not quite done as well. More of that argy-bargy. TC Esports up to 3rd and 4th position. They've slotted in front of Marty as well. Latkovsky jumps up to 7th. Nakel goes off the road.
Yeah, Sammy Joe, Abby Nakel goes for that big half spin. Picks up a lot of smoke, so clearly something's not going right with his S15, but there was a lot of contact for Yes Motorsports. It's very much a no race for them, dropping right the way down after qualifying so well. Like you said, Legadas down to 8th position. At the moment, it will be 92 in TC moving through into the final, and Koke Lopez will be just trying to keep the likes behind. But look at this, Marty's having to come down for the slowdown, picks up that half-second slowdown, and now it's going to be Latkovsky coming through. They're all fighting over 5th position, allowing the top 4 to check away into the distance. It could be done before we've even completed a lap.
And no incentive for those front 4 to fight. If you're the team manager, you're on the radio saying, we move forward if it stays like it is. Slip and slide. Marty holds on to 7th with his teammate now directly behind him, getting pushed effectively into the braking zone of the final corner by Rodriguez. There was an apex there, and Legatus managed to miss it by about an Arjuna's width, but one lap complete. Estevez Moreno for 92 Esports, Arriagada and Lopez for TC Esports in control here in semi-final 1.
They really, really are, and again, it's kind of throwing the gauntlet down and showing to the teams that will be showing up in semi-final 2, this is what you've got to do to beat us this evening. And it's been a very impressive performance in the heats, showing to be a very impressive performance here in the semi-finals. TC Esports avoiding the issues that caught them out in the heats. A good drive from Arriagada, of course, in the second chance race to allow them to finish in second and progress their way through. Now they're running third and fourth. Maybe late on in the race, Arriagada might have a little bit of a pop at Moreno just to kind of see, right? I say Moreno. I'm going to say Estevez now because those two have switched round for 92. There might be a bit of a look, but that'll be as far as it gets. Goodness me, what a slide.
Oh, yeah, well, I wonder if that's why they've swapped around on this lap, Lewis, because Mateo Estevez is looking all sorts of out of shape as they work onto this back straightaway and dropping off the tail end of his teammate. This is not completely done yet, and Arriagada and Lopez might be thinking about needing to get past if the pace of Estevez continues to drop away, because Latkovsky has got enough of his own Gran Turismo experience to make life interesting for these front four. Back underneath the BMW bridge they will go. 1/3 of this semi-final now in the books. And everything continuing just to simmer. We're in the middle part of this race. By no means have we completely settled who moves forward into the finals. And that means for those outside of the top two, not just thinking about moving forward, but Lewis, those crucial championship points that they'll be earning if they are eliminated at this stage at the checkered flag.
Yeah, again, if you are going to be one of those teams knocked out at this point, and we were saying before in the heats, it's 50% from that. Obviously, in this, your chance of being knocked out is, well, it's certainly more likely, 66%. To get knocked out in this one. It is far more likely, and certainly with the position of the top four, I mean, you say for everyone behind, it's 100%, really. You want to be the highest placed of that. That is where the points come from. That is where you're going to be looking at in the championship once we've merged the semi-final results and seen who scored the most in totality across them. 0 point with 5th and 9th. They'll be hoping that Rodriguez can make a couple of extra positions up just to secure potentially the best of the rest category. I said realistically, if you want to be in the top 4 at the end of the season, you've really got to be in the top 6 on evenings like this. You've got to be top 6 across most of the season to do that, and your worst result, I mean, I don't think it can be any worse than 8. That's why Team Nitro are effectively done for the season.
Great sound. All those different noises as they head through the final corner. Yeah, you say Team Nitro are done for the season. How crazy for a team that in the first 3 rounds of last season's ERL were flying so high. The wheels kind of came off towards the end of the regular season, but they were able to get some momentum going back into our Final 4 in January. It's just continued, unfortunately, to trend in the wrong direction. Good fight here between Marti and Rodriguez, the two Spaniards tucked in behind Legatus as they once more through the Mercedes-Benz Arena work. All this, unfortunately, is just for those valuable championship points. And 0 Point Racing, 12th on Live for Speed. This is very much around they would have circled on the calendar, Lewis, to try and get some good points on the board.
I mean, yeah, but then it's kind of one of those ones where all the teams will have circled one of the simulators. 0 Point will be, as I mentioned time and time again, they'll be circling, RaceRoom, and in seasons past, I'm sure Redline and Coanda have highlighted certain other platforms where they're expected to go well, and then you almost put all your eggs in that basket, and you think, well, it's fine because as long as we do well on that platform, we'll be doing all right. And then suddenly, the platform that you put to the back of your mind because you thought it didn't matter that much because you're focused on your one platform, suddenly that doesn't go so well, and then it's all kind of thrown up. You've got to treat every platform as seriously as each other and as much of a chance as each other within relative terms. Race leader, 1 second penalty. No, that's going to matter. Moreno will be able to serve that one pretty easily, probably without even dropping a position.
I wonder if he's going to get out of his rig to serve this penalty.
Yeah, right. The speedy run. Honestly, I don't think I'm sat currently in a chair, Arjuna. I don't think I could get out of this as fast as he got out of that sim rig between qualifying and the race.
It's almost as though... No comment. It's almost as though he was practicing that, just like drivers practice driver changes. There's no reason to practice getting out of your sim rig so quickly.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, I've got some stories about people in endurance races trying to sprint for a quick loo break time and time again, but that's not a story for the here and now. I will make a podcast one day and release all these stories onto the internet. Don't worry.
Just because you mentioned it, I do have to say, if anyone's listening, for that particular reason, in sim racing, we should always do fuel and tires separately, because in endurance races, it will give people more time to go to the bathroom. Now, message from our team at IGTL from Floren. That 1 second penalty could be enough to lose the lead, and Moreno's lost lots of momentum on the climb up to the chicane. And Estevez sweeps through and retakes the lead. 1 lap left to go. Oh, the teammate's going to have a fight like Kovsky and Legatus are about to.
Nah, I think they'll be fine. They'll be absolutely fine. This is the fight though, for who's going to be at the moment our 3rd place team, with Sami Joe Abinakil in 10th position and Rosenberger way ahead of this. Viscera will be scoring 15 points, 0 point, and yes, will be scoring the exact same at the moment. But let's see if Legatus can get through on Latkovsky. They are fighting this because it's important for some points in the overall championship. Legatus straight down the inside. Cody Nick and Latkovsky going for the up and under at the opening corner. Big kicks of oversteer. 300 brake horsepower put down onto the road surface. And it is going to go the way of yes.
Oh, this is close. Squeeze from Marty. This is where the coordination between the teammates works together. And they boxed out those yellow and grey 0 Point Racing Nissans. A great job there to work together, and now just half a lap left to go to hold on. But half a lap left for 92 Esports and TC Esports to lock out half of the grid positions in the upcoming finals.
They're doing so well at the front. Between 92 and TC, they're going to be firing on strong in the final. Can't wait to see how this battle's going to unfold. Big look to the inside as Latkovsky was trying to send one, but there definitely wasn't any option there. It's teammates all over the place. A sea of all. We're going to have 3 teams, by the way, on exactly the same points here in Visceral, yes, and 0 Point, aren't we?
It's going to be close. Obviously, tiebreaker will go the way of Visceral, with Rosenberger able to correct that Heat 1 slide. No slide from 92 Esports though. 2 consecutive 1-2 finishes, and now maybe a prelude to what we'll see in the finals. Estevez and Moreno win in semi-final 1 for 92 Esports. The black and gold of Thibaut Courtois Esports will move forward as well, while the rest of the field, all vying for their own championship points, finish up at the Nürburgring sprint layout.
That was very impressive from 92. Just want to clarify my maths right, by the way. I was thinking as if they were separated, but in a different way. Don't worry about it. I can maths. I know how to count. Do you know how to count?
Oh, I was picking up what you were putting down. Don't worry about that. Matteo Estevez, our winner of the first of our semi-finals. Look at the best lap time, though. Did go the way of Samuel Moreno. That penalty costing him the win, although really, between teammates, what's a win here and there? Arriagada slots in front of Lopez for the Thibaut Courtois Esports crew, while Rosenberger ends at least on a high for the Visceral Esports crew, backing up their win on Live for Speed. They'll end the end tonight still firmly in that championship top 4. Legatus and Marty for Yes Motorsports back up the 9th place finish on Live for Speed, while Nikolai Latkovsky in 8th position, the Macedonian-Australian, finishing in front of those behind with Rodriguez, Abinakil, Cross, and Barreto. But remember, that's just semi-final 1, and many of our championship protagonists are now locked and waiting for semi-final 2, Lewis. Going to be exciting to see what we've got in store with more teams ready to be eliminated.
Yeah, I think Visceral might be a little bit disappointed with how that one went. Obviously, after being winners on LFS, and they started out this evening relatively strong in the heats, and they came into this one, I'm sure, expecting to be one of those top 2 teams. Didn't quite go well in qualifying, and obviously was carried a little bit into the race as well. But you're absolutely right. We've got to focus on semi-final 2, and we've spoken time and time again how the expectation would lean its way towards Vitality and BS competition at the moment, but that doesn't mean that any of the other teams can't fight their way through and maybe become a part of the a part of that battle in the finals.
No, absolutely not. Let's quickly also, by the way, just again remind everybody, iRacing next on the 21st of May, so only 2 weeks away, when we will unleash the Hyundai Elantra N, one of the most successful TCR cars around the world. And then another 3 weeks before, on the 11th of June, we break out the Alfa Romeo DTM car from back in 1995 on RaceRoom, which Moritz Lohner once said to me, the best netcode of any simulator out there, Lewis, which hopefully means in a car like that as well, we'll pick a track which leads to some good close racing.
I've commentated on a lot of RaceRoom. I'm close to the RaceRoom community. Whether you could say it's the best netcode, it certainly is raceable. That's the important bit. It does. Maybe that's why Morris maybe shown himself as a bit of a dirty driver there. It does allow you to get a little bit elbows out. Does the RaceRoom netcode? I'm sure we're going to be seeing especially in that car, depending on what track we're going to. And to be fair, it kind of doesn't depend what track we're going to, because we're going to see it anyway. There's going to be a lot of elbows out in that. There'll be a lot of elbows out on iRacing using a TCR car, and I'm sure there's going to be some elbows out in the final when we get to it.
Yeah, for the record, of the 7 championship rounds that they had in DTM back in 1995, 2 of them were at the Hockenheim Ring, and 1 of them was at the Nürburgring. We should eliminate the Nürburgring from contention because we've seen it tonight, so no,
They've got
that's
classic
off.
Hockenheim Ring.
Okay, in which case, let's remove the pick ban phase. Let's just go to the classic Hockenheim Ring.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I've actually commentated on it 3 times already this year, so I'll actually veto that. Can I ban it? No, do you know what? It would
Norris
be a lot
Ring,
of fun.
then. How about that? I'm picking right now.
Norris Ring would be a quality one to go to. They've got Arvis on there. That's mental.
I'm looking forward to that, if you can't tell. RaceRoom is one of my favorites to commentate on, but that's all to come. Semi-final 1, no surprise, 92 and TC. I think that's how we all had done the math. Still wait for final word from Race Control, but between Yes, Visceral, and 0 Point, I'm not expecting much change there. And now, Lewis, semi-final 2 on the horizon. And these are the teams that are lining up. Our defending champions, EMM, maybe the highlights, but Vitality coming off their win in heat number 2.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're not sure exactly what we're going to get from EMM in this race. I know they're probably going to be sat there. I mean, look, I wouldn't be surprised if Darren McCormack was lying back, driving around, having a chill time. Mikko Schmidl was probably sweating, trying to drag the car around as best he can. They're realistic, the pair of them. They've both been sim racing a long time. They're probably not expected to get through into the final, but they want to score well. That's the important bit. For all those behind you, realistically, this is one of the teams we're expected to go through. It's this and Vitality, but we're all talking about them. They know they're the favourites. It can still go wrong for anyone at any moment in qualifying, in the opening corner, at any point during this. It can still go sideways.
Here we go for qualifying. Thomas Laboudalé back in action, Lewis, which is great after his issue at the start of his heat. And after Jack Balding's blistering performance, now Thomas Laboudalé dusting the rust off.
Just got to find the feet around the circuit again. We know Laboudalé's fast enough. We know BS Competition are fast enough, and the 96 heads into the exit of the Mercedes Arena section, looking pretty clean. Bit of a slide there between the apexes, leaving the arena section. Laboudalé is just navigating. I think we need a clean lap. The times we're looking for, low 38s, high 37s would be a very solid number. Balding is the only one to get below the 98-second barrier and get into the 1 minute 37s, but we'll see if anyone else might be able to do it in the session. I think it's going to be required in the final.
those yellow gloves must blend into that green screen. I'm no doubt about that. Fast hands,
ready for
maybe.
washing up.
Ah, he's just getting ready. Let's see what he can do through the chicane, which is relatively lenient from what we've seen in track limits. You can be quite aggressive. I mean, your four wheels on both sides of the white line there as you turn it left and then right. Straddle that curb on the left once more. Bounce off and then turn that car in. He gets to the apex nicely as well, does the Frenchman. That's a tidy lap, all things considered. What's the clock going to say?
Cross line, we'll just see what it's going to appear. 38.1 solid lap time from Le Boutelet. What does De Bruyne do behind? Only a 38.4 for the Vitality man. Darren McCormack, fresh livered EMM car. We finally got those liveries. Tremont goes on to the top with a 38.0. That's where we were expecting the speed to come from, but what does Balding have to do? Schmiedel, 38.751.
Let's wait now, though, because there are some fast drivers still. Lanuza's on the board into third. He's got Alessandro Bico as his teammate a little bit further down, maybe. Still waiting for the Italian to break the board. Zimmerman, Balding, some fast drivers, and Balding to third.
Yeah, 38.1. So Zimmerman not setting a time. Did you see that look from Darren McCormack? He's not in bed, he's on the sofa at least, but he is lying back, he's chilling, he's having a good time. And the thing is, this is what actually annoys me. Chilling, having a good time, he's still less than 2 seconds off the pace. Is that not really annoying?
He's too talented, isn't he? Just unfair.
Well, Tremont will be grabbing pole position here in semi-final 2, but in one where questions have certainly not been answered from that qualifying session. It's Vitality on the front, BS Competition in second and third, Le Boutelet and Balding. Lanuza for Williams finds his way up into fourth, with De Bruyne in fifth. Customs GT's Duel will finish the qualifying session and start from sixth position with Michael Schmiedel in seventh. Alessandro Bico for Williams will start in eighth, 3/4 of a second off the pole, out towards the 1 second margin. It's Munoz, then it's Elgin, then it's McCormack, and then Zimmerman starting from the rear of the field after not setting a time. Do you think the top two is going to be Vitality and BS Competition? Do you think someone else can get in there, Arjuna?
I think those have to be the favourites, but just look back to the heat with TC Esports, right? Turn one goes wrong, and it's just an uphill fight from there. So they got to survive. And you want to hate Darren McCormack a little bit more, Lewis. Not only he's on a controller, he's done no practice for tonight.
Just a classic McCormack move. Either way, we've got two teams already through into the final, being 92 in TC Esports. Who's going to be joining them? It is Tremont from pole position. It's Le Boutelet alongside. It's Vitality leading BS Competition as lights go out here in semi-final 2. Le Boutelet's had the same bug. He's not got going. BS Competition, they look like they might be out of it before it's even started. What is happening with Le Boutelet at the moment? That is such a shame and so unjustified for the herd. And that's going to open up the opportunity for everyone else to try and find their way through. It's Tremont leading through the opening corner. It's Balding in second. It's De Bruyne in third, meaning Vitality are in position at the moment. But who will be the second team to progress?
Crucially, though, Le Boutelet did get moving, so let's wait and see. He has dropped into line at the tail end of this field, and with his form of being able to carve through grids and the speed he's got, don't count him out just yet. As it stands right now, it is the Williams F1 Team Gaming that I think are in the hot seat. They've got 11 points. It combines to 13 then for Customs GT. But let's see if Bico and Lanuza are going to be able to work together and hold off the advance of Le Boutelet, because if he can make his way forward up into the top 10, then BS Plus Competition suddenly back in contention. And the reason why this is an issue, Lewis, for those that are sitting and wondering, all that needs to happen is you slightly apply the brakes at the time of the start, and you don't go anywhere. And so maybe just slightly covering the left foot, and now issues in back-to-back races.
Elgin looks down the inside of Le Boutelet to really hammer home the frustration for BS Competition. Le Boutelet will be hanging on, though, 11th spot for him at the moment. The issue for him is that there's drivers ahead that are still plenty fast enough. Slide there from McCormack, holding up Zimmerman. Le Boutelet will try and work his way through. They've still got the chance. They've still got the pace. Munoz is on the rear end of Alessandro Bico as well, so it's not all set and sorted for the Williams team. As Lanuza goes down the inside of De Bruyne, very aggressive at the opening corner, understanding the pressure coming from behind, and pushes De Bruyne out of the way.
That's great driving. And great management, you'd assume, as well, because he's probably been told, don't be safe, let's go, let's make some moves, because Laboudalé is going to be doing so as well. Biko, out of his comfort zone, you would say, yes, a very quick driver, but this is where the adaptability has to come in for Dara McCormack. The assist saving him there as he almost went into the death wibble wobble and then able to bring it back under control, but I don't know how much he's going to be able to defend from Floris Zimmermann, who one way then the other has been looking in the mirrors, unable to find his way through as Thomas Laboudalé now joins the fun.
It seems to swing one way then the other, and our attention is being dragged left, right and centre at the moment. Laboudalé needs to get up to about 8th position for Balding. There is still the chance for him to get past Drummond. This is Lanuza trying to keep De Bruyne at bay. We'll see the vitality fill the mirrors. And here's the thing though for De Bruyne, right? And these are the questions you've got to ask. Who do you want joining you in the final? Now, BS Competition in Balding and Laboudalé are going to be a team that you'd expect, if they are in the final, they'd be one to really compete for it and really challenge Vitality. Look, if you want to make it a little bit easier, maybe Williams aren't going to be that team to fight you as hard as BS Competition would. So if I'm in De Bruyne's boots at the moment, I'm actually not going to fight Lanuza that hard. I might even be assisting the Williams team here.
I agree with your conclusion. I disagree with the route that you took to get there. Because if I'm Vitality, I'm telling De Bruyne, you know, there's no need for us to make any moves right now because no one's even close to us on points, right? So the last thing you need to do is get any penalty points or risk getting tangled up in any situation. So react to what you see in your rear view mirror. If you see someone like Floris Zimmermann dive down the inside, make way. Dara McCormack not making way, and maybe a chance for Laboudalé to try the up and under, but he won't be able to pull alongside of the Irishman as they head to the right-hander, and so Laboudalé still stuck, and this is the music that Williams F1 Team Gaming would have been hoping for, but the music's going to start disappearing soon. If BS Plus can fight their way up into 9th position, and it's only a handful more positions, and suddenly BS Plus are back in the driving seat.
I think 9th, though, is about as good as it's going to get for Laboudalé. We're already approaching halfway through this race. We've got 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th all in competition here, with Darren McCormack keeping Zimmermann at bay. And there have been a couple of opportunities for Laboudalé to try and sneak past here, but has been unable to pounce on any opportunity. Alessandro Biko and Mikhail Schmidl will be fighting up ahead. Big curb being taken there and a big slide off the corner from McCormack as he picks up the curb there onto the brakes into the final corner. McCormack, Zimmermann, Laboudalé and Elgin right at the rear of the field. Zimmermann right onto the rear end of the Irishman. There's surely going to be some form of switch down to the opening corner, but which way is it going to go?
Some great stuff. Again, this combo is working quite nicely. I think a lot to do, though, with the car itself as Zimmermann gets to the right rear of McCormack. Just a reminder, you don't need a wheel to compete in an esports competition. Dara McCormack's kicked back on the couch and putting up a good fight, but the rear end has finally given him a bit too many issues, and Zimmermann and Laboudalé slip through. Now, if Laboudalé can get to 8th position, then BS Plus will move forward with how it stands right now. McCormack almost ended their hopes right there, but avoids tagging the rear of the Frenchman.
Yeah, I mean, he did tag Laboudalé quite a bit there. I've got to say, McCormack we give him the credit of, like, you know, he's sat there lying back on a controller and whatnot. Do remember, he was one of the absolute fastest drivers on Forza back in the day, and still probably would be, I'm sure. And I'm pretty sure a lot of that was on a controller. So when it comes to driving one of these types of titles, these Simcade adventures on a controller, it's not as if he's trying to learn it, and, you know, it's still deeply ingrained in there. And you're absolutely right. There's quite a lot of drivers that even race at the high level of esports, even on a controller. Less so on iRacing. We did used to have it back on RF2 back in the day. There's a couple of drivers that can really fight towards the top. Even just flicking around the controller, which is absolutely crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, well, Alessandro Biko hasn't gone the controller route. iRacing's his main game, but clearly his Fanatec wheel able to be used on the PlayStation as well, defending. And this is crucial from Munoz behind for Customs GT, because if Biko loses this spot, then Laboudalé finishing in 9th is enough for BS to move forward. So, again, go back to the management for Williams F1 Team Gaming, they made that call to get Lanuza past De Bruyne with urgency. Now they're going to get on the radio with that same level of urgency and say a lap and a half to go. Alessandro, that's all you've got to do. And then the pizza, the pasta, it's waiting for you at the checkered flag.
It's the pizza and pasta waiting for me at the checkered flag.
I'm hungry if you can't tell.
Oh yeah, no, I'm vibing with that. I think there's going to be a sprint out of my commentary seat after this, and a race to my car to the nearest fast food establishment. I'm sure not too long after the finals been dealt with. I jest, of course. It's currently nearly 8:30 at night. I'll be going to bed.
I don't know. I was going to say 8:30. It sounds like the fast food time, if anything. You know, I'm going to have to now decide between I've got a pizza oven and making a homemade pizza, or they've made this wonderful. It's like a combination of a calzone and a pizza where they put ricotta cheese into like these corners, and there's like a star shape, and it's like a pizza in the middle, but then a calzone on the outside. And oh goodness, I've caused a problem.
Starving.
I've caused a problem for myself, haven't I?
Oh my goodness, that's like me entering the back nine of a golf course thinking, right, what are we having for food after this? Karen Rogers like, you thinking about food already? That is me to you right now. At the front of the field, though, it's Drummond leading from Balding, Lanuza and De Bruyne. And I'm sure absolutely none of these are thinking about what they're going to be scranning on later. Just thinking about getting into the final, thinking about trying to win this whole competition tonight.
What a wiggle there from De Bruyne for a second. What a final we are in for, by the way. BS Plus competition are hoping Laboudoulet can get through on Zimmerman, but if it is BS Plus that move forward, we have 4 high-level Gran Turismo World Series lineups ready to battle Lewis in the final race of the night, and it's coming down to this final lap, and maybe coming down to what race control has had to say about some of the moves.
Yeah, I mean, look, race control haven't stepped in too much this evening. I think they may well step in a little bit, certainly maybe more so in the final, seeing what happens down to the opening corner, but right now, everything's been all good. Such disappointment, though, for BS competition, for Balding and Laboudoulet. They'll be both sat there thinking what could have been, because it does look like at the moment they are not going to be progressing through into the final. Drummond's really close, though, with Balding closing in. He's throwing everything at it at the moment, trying to find his way through into the final for BS competition. There's a look at the final corner. Balding sending it, trying to steal victory away from Kylian Drummond. It's Balding and Drummond side by side up towards the line. Will it be enough for BS competition? I'm not so sure. A drag race between the pair of them. We'll see Drummond coming out on top as Vitality will progress their way through into the final. And unfortunately for BS competition, they will miss out. But what a dramatic finish.
Lewis, if the line was 10 meters earlier, that could have changed. The number above the car flipped as they got closer and closer to the line, but Jack Balding gave it everything. It wasn't enough, unfortunately.
Huge respect to Balding to have actually sent that one. Had absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain from trying to do it. Unfortunately, even if he had won the race, it wouldn't have actually been enough. But still, Drummond is your winner. Balding will finish in second position, just 100th between the BS competition and Vitality pair. Lanuza for Williams, looks like it's going to be them moving through into the final along with Vitality. De Bruyne finishes in 4th. Customs GT, Jewel will finish in 5th position with EMM's Mikael Schmiedel in 6th. Alessandro Bico in 7th with Munoz for Customs GT in 8th spot. Behind all that, the big drama that would see the other BS competition car drop right the way back of Laboudoulet and only finish in 10th position, unfortunately, across the line. Of course, not being able to find his way through into 9th. So it does seem as though we have our 4 finalists set. There would be Williams, it'll be 92. Of course, it'll be TC Esports and Vitality.
Well, BS rue those technical issues, though, Lewis, at the end of the season, because, I mean, they in many ways felt like they were guaranteed a spot in finals if it was determined by pace alone. 3rd at the opening round in Live for Speed. If things go wrong in iRacing and RaceRoom and they drop out of the top 4, these could have been some crucial championship points that with their driver lineup, they will have felt they would have at least been warranted to be closer in the fight.
Yeah, I mean, look, it is kind of heartbreaking to see, because Laboutale and Boulding have been fast enough all evening, and whatever the stem of the technical issue is for Laboutale there, because it's obviously happened twice, there is a cause to it. Whether it's been the brake pedal maybe spiking a little bit on the start and then causing that brake to be kind of let on the race start, or something else. It's not just incredible bad luck. There is something else there. Regardless, they are going to be in a very painful position.
Have to wait and see how our finals end up shaking out, because we do end up having, at the end of the day, Lewis, 4 teams fighting for maximum points, and that's going to be such an interesting dynamic as we get set for our final on-track action of the night.
Indeed, one last race to deal with and one last bit of excitement to come, I'm sure, but obviously we've still got a little bit to digest before that. I'm sure we'll take another quick look at both of the exciting semi-finals, because they both were relatively exciting. They both were a little bit calm, especially semi-final 1, but there were some big sends in semi-final 2, and it was very exciting.
Nature of the beast, as we've often seen in Esports Racing League competition, when the spots inside of the transfer positions are guaranteed, little incentive to fight. It's why in Rennsport they dabbled with paying out points in some of the earlier stages, right, Lewis, as we built through different parts of the competition. But anyway, that was all in the past. Semi-finals in the past as well. And let's reflect on semi-final 1, when we sent the first of our 6 teams out there. And the green light went out with 92 Esports on the front row, and while a slightly sluggish start may have thought there might have been some challenge down to turn 1, Estevez and Moreno were able to cover off any moves from behind. The RG-Bargy from TC Esports, that's what sent Legatus out and wide, and ultimately helped promote Thibaut Courtois Esports to 3rd and 4th, a position they did not relinquish until the closing stages of the race. Sami Joe Abby Nakel out wide on the exit of the Mercedes-Benz Arena, puff of smoke as well. Not all was right for the Visceral Esports machine. As the fights continued, Legatus trying to fend off the advances of 0 Point Racing, as our teammates up front really pushed the tempo and tried to break clear of those hunting them down. That included the battle in the mid-pack, which increasingly amongst all the fighting found themselves losing more and more time to our leaders. And ultimately, the Yes Motorsports pair able to slip in front of 0 Point Racing. A mistake from Moreno saw him incur a slowdown penalty. It saw his teammate slip in front, and the order would not reverse until the drop of the checkered flag. Legatus, on his recovery back up through the field, showed a couple of those elbows, and then played the team game, working out through the Mercedes-Benz Arena, block pass, and enabled his teammate to get to the inside of Cody Nikolatkovsky, and eventually exiting the arena. Teammates worked their way forward, teammates crossed the line with some contact, and 2 teams advanced into the finals in the Esports Racing League. And Lewis, semi-final 1, like we said, maybe not as much action as we would have wanted. All the action came outside of the front 4.
Yeah, I mean, look, 92 and TC very much earned their spots in our final, and a bit of oddity there between the 2 92 cars, but look, I'm sure that's fine. Semi-final 2 though was very exciting. Let's take a look. Highlights from semi-final 2. Laboutale not off the front row of the grid, dropping back, unfortunately, to the rear of the field. He would be able to get going, but it would allow Dramont to have a clear run into the opening corner. Laboutale, though, was trying to assist his teammate, Jack Boulding, who was running in 2nd position, but trying to work his way through in some of those lower positions. Lanuza with a big send down the inside of De Bruyne up onto the podium at the moment, putting Williams into position to move through into the final. Zimmerman was battling with McCormack as trying to close in would be Laboutale for BS competition. Zimmerman straight around the outside of the EMM driver, back down the inside of the opening corner, struggling to find that pathway past the Irishman, who was fending him off as best he could, dragging Laboutale back into it. The Frenchman not seeing an opportunity as the road being blocked by Zimmerman and McCormack ahead. Every time there looked like there might have been a chance, that chance faded away. This, though, at the opening corner, saw Zimmerman find his way through on McCormack. Laboutle would also come through, and into the last corner of the race, Jack Balding threw everything onto the line. A drag race between himself and Kylian Drummond to see who would progress their way through. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be the case of BS competition. Vitality would progress through into the final, dragging through Williams as well, and a victory for Kylian Drummond.
Got to give it up to Jack Balding for at least giving it a go. It wouldn't have been enough at the end of the day, Lewis, as Vitality and Williams F1 Team Gaming make up the final 2 in the final 4.
I've got to say, big plaudits though for Balding to have sent that one down at the final corner. I know I said it during the race, but that is brave to have. I mean, I guess there is that, you know, you got nothing really to lose. But of course, this is the thing of this competition. Still being in third position here in semi-final 2. I know you're not in the final, but let's think about realistically how many points are going to be lost here. If you go through and win 24 points for the victory, what they're going to be scoring 17, 18 points for third. So they've lost 5 points, right? When you put it like that, it's not that bad. Realistically, it's not that bad. They've still scored really well this evening. They've still been consistent this evening, and they'll still be scoring really, really well for the overall standings. And again, it's about being in the top 4 in the standings and progressing through to our season finale.
Not far away from reaching our final 4 as well, when it won't be a championship trophy that gets lifted in the unique world of Esports Racing League. Instead, it's championship belts that will get lifted into the air and then strapped across the waist of our drivers. And I think Race Control have just indeed confirmed no change here to semi-final 2 standings. And so it is confirmed, 92 Esports. TC Esports joined by Vitality Sim Racing and the Williams F1 Team Gaming. Starting to get a little bit more excited now, Lewis. It's far on Gran Turismo 7. Now just one more race left to go.
And these will be the 4 teams to progress into it. 92, TC, Vitality, and Williams. Be very excited to see which one's going to come out on top. The favourites still would lean their way towards Vitality, but 92 have been so good. And of course, this is how the competition works. We haven't seen a 92 take on Vitality this evening so far. We get to see it in one final race. Got to tell you, Arjuna, though, all this talk of championship belts. When are we getting championship scarves? Come on, like us throwing around the BS competition scarves in Maastricht was a lot of fun. Even though I didn't appreciate you throwing yours straight onto me.
That was pure cinema. And if there is a VCO Simi Award category for best intro, well, I think that, by the way, is, I mean, no bias, probably already has won the award. There's no question about that. Absolute cinema as we got out of our MG, the British Racing Green MG, sprinted across the parking lot. I mean, I was like Tom Cruise behind the wheel. You were like Tom Cruise while you were running. You know?
I did do a lot of running, and for those that were there, I might have done a little bit of falling, which thankfully was in the evening after all of the running. And let me tell you, it did hurt.
I threw you under the bus for that last time, and I completely had forgotten about it. So thank you for bringing that back up, because I'll remember now in 2 weeks' time and bring it up again on iRacing.
I remember back to it as comedy value, and I will say I've got shoes that have better grip this time. So if we're around, you and O'Leary and Cameron Roger at some point in the near future, boys, I will be challenging you two to another foot race. Hopefully this time I won't stack it on the initial step.
Now this is content that must get filmed.
No, to be fair, I stacked it. Cameron Roger did prove how good of a friend he was, because his first
Did he
reaction,
stop?
his first, both you and Ancam, to be fair, their first reactions wasn't laughing. It was, "Are you all right?" And then was laughter, which is fine. But it was initial laughter. It was Florian stood outside of the restaurant. I think it was Florian, might have been Philip as well. I just heard, "Oh," from down the road. I was like, "Whoopsie, sorry, boys." Anyway, we're in qualifying.
Incredible stuff. We are in qualifying, and for the final time tonight, the pressure is put on. Drivers have just one lap. Draft is turned off, but they can see one another. So any distractions, it's on you to manage them. Benefit is even around the shortened version of the Nürburgring sprint layout. Plenty of space to, I would think, find some clean air, go down through the gears, into turn one, found that apex nicely, did Koke Lopez, and now back on power, rise up into the Mercedes-Benz arena, feather the car, maintain the momentum as you now drop back off down the hill. Lots of runoff to use there, track limits not an issue clearly. Bit of hint of understeer, then oversteer as he tries to get on the power aggressively to slingshot out towards the shortcut. And once again, track limits, just a suggestion.
Sadly, 3 and 4 did not look clean there for Lopez. A little bit too deep. I think whilst was wrestling on the curb on the right-hand side, the car was unbalanced when he got onto the brakes. It started sliding and pushed away from him as he tried to get on the throttle. Couldn't drag it in to the apex. Slams it onto the curb. Slams it onto the curb again. Couldn't quite get as far over to the left-hand side as he'd want. And just drifting a touch away from the apex there as we head back out onto the back stretch. It's not the tidiest lap from Koke Lopez, but for TC Esports, still might be a solid position. But I do think to qualify and pole it, we're definitely needing a 38-0, maybe even that 37-9, which we've seen only one time this evening. Slams the curb.
Now listen in. Tires squeal, but he did a good job of getting to the apex at the final corner. But again, that first sector is where all the time would have been lost. Low 38, what you're aiming for. It's a mid 38 for Koke Lopez. No question, there will be faster times. Estevez has found almost 0.4 of a second as 92 try and lock out the front row for the third time tonight. But there goes those dreams. Kylian Drumont, 138.061.
Yeah, superb performance once again from Drumont. What can Moreno do? 39.0 for Alessandro Bico, about a second off of where he needs to be. Moreno slams over the curbs. Where's Lanuza as well? I think he's working his way through the final corner. The final times this session, 38.0 for Drumont is what needs to be beaten. Lanuza across the line, 38.155, puts Williams onto the front row. Can Moreno steal it away?
He's expecting it, and he's got it! A 137.857, the fastest lap we've seen today!
What a lap. No sprint out of the room on that one. That was incredible. What an absolute stunner there for 92 Esports. Incredible from Sam Moreno. I mean, that is the fastest lap by 1/10 of a second, on pole in the final by 0.2, Arjuna. Where does that come from?
I mean, turns out emptying the bladder, I would have thought removes urgency from the equation, but clearly lightens the load as Moreno, oh, what a lap time. And with the pressure on, this could be the time to rise to the occasion. Kylian Drumont, though, will try and challenge for vitality, and then Williams F1 Team Gaming make it 3 different teams in the front 3. What can Noah Lanuza do with Estevez, Arriagada, Lopez, De Bruyne, and then the first of the only non-Gran Turismo World Championship level driver. It's Alessandro Bico, the iRacing World Championship driver instead. And what a field, Lewis. And now we get ready to go. The lights come up for the final time tonight on Gran Turismo 7, a stacked field in these Nissans with 300 horsepower and the Nürburgring sprint layout at their disposal. Good jump from the front row. In fact, a good jump from everybody. It will be even as we descend down in towards turn 1. Moreno slides across and covers off the inside as we head onto the brakes. Lanuza not able to poke alongside of Kylian Drumont. The pair of Frenchmen settle into second and third respectively. But for 92 Esports, the dream start. Moreno leads, Estevez tucked into 4th.
Yeah, they are at the moment the ones in position. This is about as good as it gets. Kai De Bruyne trying to keep Koke Lopez at bay. Alessandro Bico with a look to the inside of contact. And there's the half spin for Estevez. He's going to make it 4 wide to the exit of the Mercedes Arena section. To the outside of Koke Lopez he goes. He squeezes off Alessandro Bico. There's nowhere else to go. But 92 is looking so good now. It's slipping through their fingers.
It's still mathematically on their side though, but Estevez is being beat up as they head up the hill in toward the left, and now finally maybe back into the rhythm with Koke Lopez and Kai De Bruyne, one of the big losers on this opening half of the lap. This race extended in length slightly as well, by the way. 6 laps becomes 8, and Lewis, who had pointed out that these tyres might start to heat up the later we go into these races. They are hard compound tyres as well, slightly different than what these Gran Turismo World Series drivers usually would be racing with.
Yeah, it'll be about a 13, 14-minute race, but still the tyres, they do take quite the beating even around here. Kai De Bruyne to the outside of Coque Lopez will not be able to find anything there for Mateo Estevez. 5th position at the moment would be good enough, but realistically would like to pull away from that fight behind. Kai De Bruyne will be trying to force the issue to get through on Coque Lopez. Looks to the inside now, will go full send for Vitality, trying to take the yellow and black up the position. Nearly clears into the rear end of Estevez, but does get the move done on Coque Lopez.
So I guess at this point, everyone's doing the math to figure out how do you displace 92 Esports from the top. Coque Lopez almost displaces himself off the track as he lights up the rear end coming down through the Mercedes-Benz arena. But for at least Vitality sitting second, if we work under the assumption that Moreno doesn't get caught and Kylian Drumont finishes in second, then Mateo Estevez will need to drop down a little bit further for Kai De Bruyne to really have a chance of bringing Vitality into the mix. You would think if De Bruyne passes Mateo Estevez, costs him a couple of tenths of a second on the exit of one of these corners, maybe that allows Coque Lopez to slip through as well. That's the kind of thing, Lewis, that these teams will be thinking about.
Yeah, at the moment though, each half of the field has one of each team. Tell me that it's not as even as it gets. Looking at that, we've got 92 leading, Vitality second, Williams and TC behind. You almost copy and paste that again. It's 92, then Vitality, then it's TC leading Williams behind that. Point for the penalty for the race leader. Moreno, 1 second penalty for Moreno. That could cost him the race lead to Kylian Drumont. It's back up in the air again.
And so when that switches around, because we saw it in the semi-final, Estevez getting past Moreno. Moreno's made this mistake a couple of times, Lewis, given that everyone else has been pretty much okay with track limits. The fact that he's continuously finding himself on the ragged edge, it tells us a lot. It tells us he's pushing that limit a bit too much at this stage.
It's going to be a big push this lap from Kylian Drumont to keep on the rear end of 92 Esports, to keep the pressure on the shoulders, to gather that position as soon as that 1 second penalty is served. I don't know if it has to be served immediately or if they can leave it another lap or two. I'm not
immediately.
100% sure. I was going to say, I'm pretty sure it's immediately. That's why it was tried to be served earlier, but actually it was a little bit too early, hilariously.
Bless Felix Van Delt, who just sent me some championship points, to which I said, well, it's about to change. As out of turn 7, pair of 90-degree, first left, then a right-hander, onto the back straight. Moreno's going to see those yellow arrows. It looks dramatic, but it's not so dramatic when you see it from this camera angle. Kylian Drumont, the Frenchman, sweeps through, and instantly the complexion of this event has changed, because Kai De Bruyne has got in front of Estevez as well, and Vitality are in control.
The double switch goes the way of Vitality. They are now in control of the event. They are now in position to win the event. We've got 3 laps in, 5 to go. Still lots of time. If Moreno finds his way back through here on Drumont, then it will switch back in favour of 92 Esports, but they'd be finishing on the same amount of points. Drumont tries to break the slipstream. Moreno will try and make this one down the inside of the opening corner, but he certainly isn't close enough yet.
Wow. This is one of the most intense finals I think I can remember outside of the 1v1s. We've had a couple of these finals where we've had 3 teams, but sprinkle the 4th into the mix, and now you've suddenly got all these other drivers who find themselves in contention. If someone like Arriagada becomes part of this battle up front, very quickly things will change. And I love, Lewis, how you mentioned it. We've got a driver from each team in the front half and the back half of the field. It's about as evenly matched as you can get right now. And even for the Williams F1 Team Gaming, this is going to be a 2nd consecutive event where they will finish inside of the top 4. And at this point, they'll be feeling very, very good about their hopes of making it to the in-person event to close out the season.
Which, you know, obviously when they did that before, we were looking at them as a strong team. We were looking at them coming into the season as yet another strong team. Hopefully they won't rebrand for this time. Going into another live event, that'll confuse us far too much. We can't be doing that again. But it does give us the opportunity to maybe steal a couple of shirts from them. So, boys, extra large for me. Thank you very much. We'll be at the moment, things are looking good for you.
You've heard your instructions. We're halfway through this final race, and Kylian Drumont's feeling the heat. Blocks all the way to the wall. Moreno's going to have to make this work around the outside if the pass happens down to turn 1. After all that excitement, after setting the fastest qualifying time we've seen, Moreno makes the mistake, gets the penalty, and drops back through the field. Now this is crucial. Lanuza's slow and backing up the back half of the field. De Bruyne wants to make his way forward. Estevez and Lopez stacking up behind as well.
I think we jumped back into something. I think something was going on there down at T1, whether it was De Bruyne on Lanuza, whether it was Estevez on the pair of them, but we definitely jumped into the middle of something. That's for sure. Lanuza at the moment in 4th. If Kai De Bruyne is able to get through here into 4th position, it almost feels as good as done for Vitality. It almost feels as though they will be securing this with, I say relative ease, with big air quotes either side of it. It means that they might be a little bit more comfortable on the final few laps of this race. For Estevez, there's some looks to the inside from Koke Lopez. TC Esports still trying to rescue whatever their points they could get. I mean, look, they're all fighting for whatever they're fighting for. They're all fighting for their own bit here. And look, it's a race. You're going to race. That's the whole point of it.
Been a great night. Been a really interesting competition as well between our teams. It'll be a very different competition on iRacing. There is no doubt about that. Will we see these same teams towards the front? For 92 Esports, maybe not so much experience on iRacing, but it's been a good start to this 2026 Esports Racing League season. Once more, San Marino will try and lead the charge for them down into turn 1. Kylian Drummond able to cover the middle of the track this time, not so defensive, which is exactly what the Frenchman's hoping to be able to do. Carry enough of his momentum around the track through the arena. Barely a paper's length separating the two of them, and Moreno then has to back out of something. Thought about a half-hearted look up the inside. He is so close, he can sniff this move, but he's waiting for a mistake that's not coming.
Look, Moreno's going to do something. He is going to do something. You know it. You can see by the way he's looking. The same as what we saw from Jack Balding in the previous race, where there was that opportunity, that one final opportunity into the final corner, and Jack Balding tried to take it. He missed out by 100th of a second. Moreno will be well aware of that, and will be doing very much the same thing on the final lap. But of course, that final lap would be coming on this one if it was in the heats or the semis or the second chance race. We've got 2 more laps of action here in the final, with Kylian Drummond at the moment in position for Vitality. Moreno has dropped back the tiniest of margin, the gap out to, what, a couple of tenths? My goodness, it's massive.
Got to be careful, Moreno, and I think he's aware of that, because any move with contact is going to instantly trigger a look from race control. These 3 have got some separation, though. Whatever we dropped into with Lanuza and De Bruyne, they have continued to keep each other close, but still a handful of seconds between the first 3 and the peloton that's chasing them down. Closing stages here in the second round of our 2026 Esports Racing League season. Arriagada overcommits down into turn 1, avoids tagging the tail end of Moreno, but as De Bruyne slips past Lanuza, can Estevez follow around the outside?
He's got to do it here. Estevez has to make this move. If he doesn't, it doesn't matter whether Moreno's able to come through on his teammate or not. Unfortunately there, Lanuza gets out a little bit wide, and it will be Estevez being forced down the order. It is swinging the way of Vitality at the moment. De Bruyne's moved his way back through into 4th. Drummond leads. And now, even if Moreno is able to steal away the victory, it won't be enough for 92. And the fairy tale story they've been telling all the way through this evening will be coming to a pretty disappointing climax for the team.
But again, this is the world of the Esports Racing League, and I think we have to help reframe that, Lewis, right? Because as much as they won't win tonight, second place amongst all these great teams, amongst all these great lineups, they may feel like their pace warranted a bit more, but the nature of this competition, you are promised nothing, and they will have only given 1 championship point away to another team, a team they were 2 points behind coming into the night.
Yeah, but I mean, you try telling racing drivers on the evening, oh, I know you finished second, but you know, at least you scored only 1 point less than Vitality. There'll be something, I don't care about that. I wanted to win. 1 more lap around this circuit to try and steal it back. Moreno back into the slipstream of Drummond. Estevez has a half-second penalty as well. He's going to lose out to Lopez on this final lap, I'm sure.
Now, does that give a chance for anybody? I'm trying to do the quick math, but no, TC a bit too far behind as it stands, unless Arriagada's going to poke his nose and make his way past Moreno onto the final lap of this race, though. There is no question about it, even though on the left it will still say 7 of 8. Kylian Drummond, Kai De Bruyne could be half a lap away from going back-to-back on GT7 in the Esports Racing League.
They are doing everything they need to do. Moreno has been throwing everything at it. Huge respect to 92, to TC, to Williams. They have thrown everything they can at this evening's competition. Vitality have stepped up when they needed to. Only a few corners left to go for Kylian Drummond to grab victory again, to take it on this platform as they did in the brand of R8G last season. Drummond through onto the backstretch. How close is it going to be for Moreno to steal this victory away, at least in the race?
And heartbreaking for Mateo Estevez. So strong in the heat and the semi-final, dropping down to 7th at the end of the day. What could have been for 92 Esports is what will be for Vitality Esports instead. What a wonderful event it's been. IGTL partnering with the team at VCO to bring the Esports Racing League to life on Gran Turismo 7. The Nürburgring and Nissan, a combo made in heaven for Kylian Drummond and for Kai De Bruyne to go back-to-back on Gran Turismo 7 in the Esports Racing League.
So good from Vitality, too good from Vitality. When they needed it most, they stepped up. 92, big shout out. Great drive from them this evening. It'll be 2nd place for them. Joint on points they will be with TC Esports. Williams F1 Team Gaming will be the 4th. But Vitality are victorious. Kylian Drummond, and I believe that might be the first race win that's come not from pole position.
I think I agree with you on that, and once again a margin of less than half a second. We told you winning margins would be small tonight. The winning margin for the team, though, maybe a bit larger in terms of points, as Kylian Drummond and Kai De Bruyne, 1 and 4, combined to win. Ahead of Moreno Arriagada for 92 and TC Esports. Lanuza for the Williams F1 Team Gaming drops back slightly after maybe cooking his tyres. Estevez back in front of Lopez through the final corner by 7,000ths of a second. Gotta give him that one. And then Alessandro Bico, the only one of the non-Gran Turismo World Series drivers in this final, still accounts himself pretty well to finish just a handful of seconds down through the field. There is one thing for race control to take a gander at. Have to wait to see what will happen. A handful of penalty points and things could end up changing, but I'm not quite sure how much aggression there really was to look at there.
Yeah, also I think, like, even if they got a couple of penalty points, Vitality are far enough clear that even a couple of penalty points going their way actually wouldn't necessarily affect it that much. And I don't think you can disagree, with how good they've been this evening. They've been, very consistent. Arguably, at times, not the fastest team. You'd have to lean that one towards 92 Esports at points. Obviously, the fastest lap of the entire evening going to San Marino. BS competition looked really quite quick in the hands of Jack Bowling, but Vitality were consistent and were pacey exactly when and where they needed to be.
Well, so where did 92 finish? It was 2nd and 6th, right? Just to confirm.
It would be 2nd and 6th in the end, so they will be 2nd overall, yes.
So that's 2nd and 6th. The reason why I bring that up is that's 8 points compared to 5 for Vitality. I was about to say R8G because my mind went back to 2025. So that means if this incident is worthy of penalty points, most minor incidents have been given only 2 penalty points. So even if it's considered minor, R8G are at fault. It would need to be considered something major to be, I think, finals changing decision. But we will wait for the official confirmation from our great team behind the scenes at Race Control. And let's give a shout out as well, Lewis, to the IGTL, because your first time here on Gran Turismo 7 in the Esports Racing League, but second time we've partnered up with them. We did it last time as well. They help us behind the scenes with setting up the servers, with the broadcast and everything, and it's great to have their support. It's almost like doing a Gran Turismo event from Polyphony, and I can tell you that from experience.
It's one of those ones to have a series which runs from platform to platform. We need to, communicate and associate ourselves with some of the best from each given community. We've done that through iRacing, we've done that through iRacing, and obviously here on Gran Turismo. It is one of the most critical things to join up for an event like this to help us through these events, because we can't all be experts on every single platform known to mankind. And like I say, huge shout out to them, and it's been a relatively flawless event again, which is exactly what we need. Communities coming together to put on quite the show.
Yeah, so I know Alex, Florin, Pierre, and Kenny have been actively helping us today, but I'm sure the team behind the scenes goes even deeper. Quick look at points. Still waiting for Race Control, so not official just yet. These are provisional, but like we said, I did that rough math and it was correct. 5 and 8 respectively,
well
and then 10 and 13 for TC Esports and for the Williams F1 team gaming. Lots of, I think, excitement for these teams to head forward from this. TC in particular, 8th in the last round. They'll head to iRacing with momentum on their side. Let's talk about, though, the race that was and the eight laps of action in our final race of the night on Gran Turismo 7. 92 Esports and Vitality sharing the front row and pretty even off the line as we fired it down to turn 1, and Samuel Moreno covered off any attempted moves down the inside. Kylian Drummond tried to poke his nose the long way around. The Frenchman Noah Lanuza had a bit of contact with Drummond as well, but as we unwinded through the Mercedes-Benz arena, it was Mateo Estevez that lost out the most. Coque Lopez up the inside, charging through. Alessandro Bico off the track as the back half of the field continued on their merry way, passing each other left, right, and center. Eventually, Samuel Moreno made yet another mistake, ran a bit wide, and picked up a slowdown penalty, a move that would allow Kylian Drummond to sweep around the outside and soar to the race lead, a position that he would not relinquish until the drop of the checkered flag. Mateo Estevez a bit aggressive on Noah Lanuza. That was what sent the tail end slightly around. Kai De Bruyne not able to take advantage, but eventually as we continue to work the laps and continue to build heat in the tires, that Williams F1 Team Gaming Nissan increasingly vulnerable, and eventually the Dutchman dives down the inside. Unfortunately, Mateo Estevez tried to go the long way around, found himself on the wrong side of the road, and then eventually would pick himself up a penalty of his own that would see him drop even further down the order. He would fight his way back to 6th at the line, but it was all in vain as Drummond and De Bruyne for Vitality combined to win in the Esports Racing League.
It really was very impressive, and I will say, obviously, provisionally, we did get set in the standings. Obviously, very provisional, so we're not going to confirm it until we know the old situation. The top 3 teams all have top 5s, which is not that much of a shock, right? But again, that's the consistency you need. BS Competition, Williams and Vitality, 3rd, 2nd and 1st. Vitality, with that victory, would take over the lead of the points. Visceral, who are in 4th position, by the way, and again, 4 teams are going to be progressing through into our series finale. I did mention it earlier. I think the lowest position that you can get away with really is 8th. Their lowest position, which was tonight, was 8th. Obviously, they were victorious on the previous platform on LFS. They will need to keep some consistency, stay in the top 4 for the next couple of rounds, and they'll be one of the ones to progress their way through. But 92, TC, EMM, Ref Arx are not that far behind.
I tell you what, I think Vitality, at least this time, will be in the conversation for the Final 4, unlike last year, which is a good thing to say, because what a lineup that is, and might be a favorite. Confirmed by Race Control, 1 penalty point for I was about to say RHG, there we go again, for Vitality, which does mean, yes, they we're liable for a bit of contact, but it doesn't change the results. And officially, Kylian Drumont, Kai De Bruyne, back-to-back winners in the Esports Racing League on Gran Turismo 7. I think Kai's already run off to the club to celebrate, so we won't get a word with him, but hopefully Kylian Drumont will be joining us in just a few moments' time. But while we wait for that, Lewis, just 2 weeks away from returning to iRacing, one of the staples of the Esports Racing League, I think it's fair to say.
Absolutely. It is one of the lead in the sim racing space, and one where, yes, there will be a lot of teams expecting that this will be the round they go strong at, but we know this from our time commentating on iRacing. It's never been as strong as it is now, and so across the board, everyone kind of runs very similar pace. TC car and the Hyundai Elantra as well might be a little bit out there for some of the more iRacing specialists, but because they understand the tyres and the platform, they'll be able to kind of get up to speed in that car. I think the big curiosity, though, will be what tracks we'll be racing at. That'll be the big question there, Arjuna.
And of course, the pick and ban phase will work us through all of that. And I've got some questions about that we'll get to with our winner, Kylian Drumont, who joins us now, part of the Vitality lineup. Kylian, I mean, I've got to say congratulations, back-to-back winners in the Esports Racing League after winning last year as well. Interesting final, though. You were made to work for it. How much was that fight with Moreno at the end? Did you have to defend too much? Did he have any opportunities to make his move on those harder compound tires?
I know it was difficult to overtake it with these tires because they have slow grips. So then I just managed to have like 5/10 the gap between him. So, and I know with this gap he cannot try some things. Just only he can try a dive bomb, you know. So without that, he can't do anything. So yeah, I just managed this gap.
And I'm curious, we were talking about this earlier, the pick and ban phase of tonight. Was there any reason why you didn't pick one of the Gran Turismo unique tracks? Because, you know, we thought that picking something like the Nürburgring, it lets some of the iRacing drivers, you know, at least come to somewhere that they know.
To be honest, before the track votes, I try like 5, I think, and Nürburgring Sprints was this one. So I tried this one, and then I saw it was on the track vote, and I was the fastest, and I was the more confident it was on this track, so I chose this track.
Oh, there you go. Answered the question. Kylian, congratulations, and congratulations to Kai as well, already in the club and celebrating. Looking forward to seeing hopefully you out later on in the Esports Racing League season. Ready to go off and celebrate there as well, Kylian Drumont. And well, Lewis, time for us to get ready to say goodbye. And again, a reminder, 2 weeks from today, we're back on the 21st of May with iRacing action, and it should be interesting breaking out the TCR car at who knows what track.
Indeed, a lot of great options. Obviously, for me, let's go throw it around the street circuit. Long Beach, no. Obviously, race control will be here all night. Let's not do that. Let's throw it around somewhere more sensible. Otherwise, it'll be a very long broadcast, and Arjuna will be thinking about food more and more in a couple of weeks' time. But look, I'm really excited for it. I think the race is going to be exciting. You know me, I'm a touring car man myself. Love a little bit of the TCRs. Used to throw around the Audi RS3 LMS an awful lot. So super excited to see the Elantra go wheel to wheel. But for tonight, the night does belong to Vitality. Brilliant from De Bruyne and Drumont.
Brilliant from 92 as well. They'll be proud of their effort. TC and Williams wrapping up that final four before BS Plus competition and Customs GT, then the best of the rest, if you will. Let's confirm, though, how this shakes up the season-long standings. Remember, now officially 2 out of 4 of our regular season events in the books. Vitality on top, 2 points clear of Williams F1 Team Gaming and BS Plus competition, with the 92 Esports team now up into that top 4. But 2 very different platforms to come. Team Nitro, I would say right now, Lewis, are on the wrong side of things. Our defending champions, EMM Esports, they need a lift heading into these final 2 rounds. It's a lot still to play for.
I would expect EMM to run pretty strong though over the next couple, so I wouldn't be crazy. I mean, I am worried about them a little bit, you know, in relative terms, but I think they've got the pace to do it. I think TC Esports have got the pace to do it, but then for them to move up into the top 4, one of those 4 has to move out, and then you'd be asking some big questions as to which one of the 4 it's going to be. It's going to be a very, very exciting couple of rounds to decide who's going through into our season finale.
And so for our teams at VCO, IGTL and RaceSpot, Lewis McLeod alongside of myself, Arjuna Kankipati, join us in 2 weeks' time for the 3rd of our 4 regular season rounds. We're only a couple of races away from knowing who will be in person to fight for the 2026 ERL Championship belts. Arjuna Kankipati signing off. We'll see you next time.